Good afternoon. Welcome to Whitman Hanson Regional High School for the superintendent finalist interviews. Thank you all for coming. As we start every meeting, I'd like to remind you this is being broadcast live. It is also being recorded for use at a later date if need be. We're going to start the meeting with a moment of silence, but before we go into that, I'd ask you to please keep in your thoughts the horrific tragedy at the Parkland School District yesterday and the people that lost their lives and the people that also were injured, whether they were shot being injured or they saw what happened. It's a horrific accident. I mean, not a horrific accident, but it's a horrific situation. And I'm sure it's going to affect people for years to come. So please keep them in your thoughts. Thank you. Would you also join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you all for coming. The first thing we're going to do to keep this as fair and transparent as possible is we have put 3 names of the 3 candidates in a hat. We're going to draw the 3 names out. We're going to have Maura do that. We're going to draw out the 3 names, and that will be the order of the interviews. It seems like a fair system. Rather than saying 1, 2, 3, it's going in a hat. They're going to fall the way they fall. So, Maura?
So the first one will be the first interview?
The first one will be the first interview. The second will be the second, and the third, you'll find out the second. Who's the first one?
John Marcus.
John Marcus is number 1, interview.
Kevin McNamara.
Kevin McNamara is number 2. That makes Mr. Simonak automatically number 3. Okay. I think what we'll do first, we'll briefly discuss the site visits, and then we go to checking out what the questions were. I would be happier, but you don't have to, if the candidates would leave the room till we get this part of the interview done. You don't have to, though. This is an open meeting. Thank you. Also, before we get really rocking here, I'd like to thank the search committee. The search committee put a tremendous amount of time into whittling down what started out as a 19-candidate pool of people that were interested in the superintendent's job. They put in a tremendous amount of hours. We had a great mix on the search committee of school teachers, union people, principals, school committee members, parents at large, and they put a lot of time in. There was 3 or 4 different evenings that we spent doing this, so I'd like to publicly thank them because they were all volunteers, as everybody here is volunteer. And so it's good to see the lively debate that we had on the search committee, and our student was Maura, the more I think about it. So thank you, and thank everybody who was involved in that process. I hope that everybody, and one of our reasons for having Maura was, did you come away with a different thought of how this process worked? I'm sure it was your first time, so that's awesome. Okay, we did 3 site visits. Because all of us weren't on all the site visits, let's talk about the first site visit we did in the order. We'll go in the order that we did. Who'd like to discuss the site visit that we had right here with Whitman Hanson Regional School District? Robbie, would you like to?
Yeah, well, I'll throw something out. It was How do I put this nicely? It was very nice because we heard from parents, we heard from parents, students, principals, central office. And one thing that came out of it, talking with the students, other than their love for Jeff Simonak and some of the changes that he made, it was an interesting group just with the students, because they had a student in there that, we're allowed to talk about this, right? Some of the stuff they discussed? Yes? One of the students that didn't like when they were going to change the schedule, so he actually put a petition together, got 600 signatures on it. He and Mr. Simonak actually had to sit down about it and discussed it, and come to find out, that student and a lot of others actually liked it. They liked the 1 hour late start. That was actually something we asked them, and they do like that idea. And the students coming out of it, Mr. Hayes talked about this quite a few times, that their enthusiasm in hearing all the positive things that go on in the high school was something nice to hear. Usually we don't always get to hear nice things just because of our positions. So that was very nice to hear. The students really enjoyed them. The principals put 110% support behind them. One of the things that the principals talked about that they're looking for is they want to be able to hit the ground running. Everybody realizes, as the superintendent does, that regardless of who goes in there, it's going to be different management style that's going to come into it. Very positive. Like I said, everybody that came in obviously supported Mr. Simonak with being a finalist for the superintendent's position.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. O'Brien, or anyone that was on that site visit wants to add? Mr. Small?
I'd like to add, the one thing, and this is probably true of all the candidates as well, but the one thing that we heard as a very common theme with Jeff, genuinely cares about kids, and that his concern was really to put the kids first and foremost. Very strong on safety and security, and in light of the tragic events yesterday, that's probably in the front of the brain right now as well. Also that open-minded and willing to listen, not necessarily acquiesce to a decision, but at least willing to listen. So that's what I got out of that interview.
And one thing too, if I can just tag on to what you're talking about, one theme that seemed to resonate too, because I took a couple of notes on it, outside the box. Always thinking outside the box and not afraid to fail. If it goes wrong or goes awry, it goes awry. And you take responsibility for it, but not afraid to fail. So, and it allows students, teachers, and staff to take initiative and gives them 100% backing with any initiative they do take.
Kev?
I was impressed that we heard from people with no particular agenda speak on behalf of Jeff, that these weren't people with a professional reason to talk him up, or just a lot of people we heard from were just people who felt strongly about his character, and that was the only reason they were there. I thought that was impressive.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, a couple notes from that. Every time was children first, that's all you heard. I believe he never gave up on kids. You heard that strongly from parents. From some stories you would not want to hear, and he just never gave up on those kids, which I think is ideal. It was huge to see and hear from kids and see how well spoken the students were. I mean, unbelievable. And it was nice to hear how they were able to walk right into his office, talk with him, and deal directly with Jeff, which was nice to see.
Fred?
Just purely selfishly, but hearing students at all three schools and hearing how well-spoken the children are here in Whitman Hanson, they rock. They really rock. And what a fine bunch of kids. And I just want to make sure
Dan?
One of the things, along with the children, you always, between Title IX activities, clubs, where some kids wanted to do gaming, made sure they could get a club together to do gaming, because he didn't want any any group to be left out of anything there. Along the lines of sped ed, special ed, as a parent, I know what some of the people are saying there, because I had the same issues with my oldest son coming through, and Jeff and his staff was able to manage to get him through this system. It's always children, 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 so, you know, and that was continuously throughout that whole process that day.
Okay? Just for the record, I was on that site visit too, and I ride in with everybody else that I want to drag anymore, make this meeting any longer than it needs to be, because you guys said plenty. Okay, let's move on to number 2. Number 2 was a visit to Sharon school system. And we had an opportunity to spend some time over there, and who'd like to talk about that? Robbie, seeing as you were first.
Start again.
ahead.
Everyone that we talked to, parents, staff, teachers, central office, couldn't say enough about him. As an elementary school principal, loved him. Absolutely loved him. Would hate to see him go if he is the finalist for tonight that we hire. It was kind of interesting with the elementary school principal came in after him, because I was kidding with him, I'm like, geez, you had tough shoes to fill into there. He goes, oh yeah, I absolutely did, because he had said that it felt like the school was in mourning, even though he still worked for the district in the central office. They said, yeah, it was kind of like the school was in mourning, and they got through it, it was okay. But everybody that we talked to, because we had talked with people in the school committee room, and then we went down to the library there, and it's, again, same theme, just loved him, loved his energy. They talked about a passion he has for the arts, the music, so it was a very good visit. We did Skype with some of the students. The audio was a little tough on it, but that is what it is, modern technology these days.
Internet.
So, yeah.
Dan, go ahead, we'll just come right around.
You know, most of my notes here kept coming back to, out of all the different groups, people person, continuous over, children oriented. Learns the name of not only the students, staff, parents. That was pretty well, learned them pretty quick. Always saying hello to everybody, like, you know, Rob was saying, he's left one school to the other, was the creator there. He seemed to be very technical, savvy, STEM programs, robotics. You know, and one of the other things was out-of-the-box thinker also. You know, a few comments there where he could take things and think outside the box to make it happen.
Fred?
I was pleased to hear that he had implemented the ALICE program. He's a member of their safety and security team. The people there consider him a good team builder. Instituted a program where he would send high school students to elderly housing to give technical advice and work with the seniors at the senior centers and the elderly housing to get them on social media and whatnot to open up their world. Does have some grant writing experience. Did a little bit of research and called a few people in the town of Sharon, and the gentleman could probably run for mayor there and win very easily if they had a mayor. He is very well loved throughout the whole community. Just nobody could say a bad word about the man. Just a very, very fine individual. The one thing that I did find surprising, they had replaced their superintendent about 8 or 9 months ago, and they wanted change, is the way it was told to us by someone that was on their search committee. He wasn't afforded an opportunity to even be a finalist. I was just very surprised about that. But everybody there, you know, couldn't speak highly enough about him, and like a lot of what he's done.
Who else? Who else was on that search? Let's stay to the search.
Stay to search first.
It was a really positive environment there, and, you know, I can't verify the elementary school he left many years ago, but unless everybody was lying, he had made that place like a beamingly positive place. And the areas we went with him, people were seemed just very positive in their outlook, their attitude, and attributed much of that to him. He was very involved in implementing technology and getting computers in the classroom. As we walked through the building, these kids are, every classroom they're doing different things, but you got all these, these MacBooks everywhere these kids are using.
Mac Air.
Yeah, so, these kids are using these computers, but they're not all using them at the same time, so it seemed to show a lot of flexibility and a smooth sort of integration of technology into what they're doing. I was impressed by the breadth of who we heard from and his experience there. He really seems willing to just work wherever he's needed. So when technology director leaves, he steps up and becomes technology director. When transportation is understaffed and they can't figure out busing, he steps in and works there. He's worked in all those areas of central office on top of his background directly with kids. Those were my main takeaways from that visit.
Anyone else that went on that trip?
I didn't go on the trip.
Pardon me?
I didn't go on the trip, but I'd like to add something if that's okay.
Okay. We're going to do that, Bob, when we get to the candidates too, though, unless it's something to do with, go ahead.
No, just what I would say is that I did work with John Marcus when he was a principal in Stoughton. I was a classroom teacher. And what you said about the information you got from how he was in the elementary school was right on, because he did transform the school that he was at. So the words that were said about that were definitely true. I saw that myself firsthand. That's all I want to add.
I've got some notes, too. Good principal, director of tech, good, this is all stuff I wrote down shorthand, good ideas, innovative, 20 years, very charismatic, collaborative, very emotional kind of guy, like into it. Next best practices, always student-centered, team leader. There was a gentleman there who was Ken Wirtz, who was into the maintenance part of the district. In fact, he said he knew Ernie through some thing that they belonged to together to do with maintenance. He did tell Alice training, good collaboration, strong PR person. This was what this gentleman said. The audiovisual was poor, so we didn't really get to talk to the students whatsoever. It was nobody's fault. They had a bad signal, and it just happened, so we didn't get any student. They were trying. It wasn't for lack of trying. There was some confusion on how much the budget was yearly and what the per pupil cost was. And that's all I have. I've got family connection, great leader, mentor, student-centered, gets involved. These were all things that people said. Visionary. So that's all notes that I made. Anything else? Visit number 3 was to Lincoln, Rhode Island. Fred, do you want to start that one?
Sure. That was Mr. McNamara. He was a classroom teacher, tennis coach, and athletic director. Improved the climate and culture there, considers their school to compete with charter and private schools for students. Considers it a competition. They have wood shop, auto shop, robotics. Even though they have Votech out there, they compete by having a wood shop and an auto shop. It's something that this gentleman feels strongly about keeping as much in the district. They have a strong culinary program for at-risk older students. They're in special ed. The special ed students go out and they go to work at local area restaurants during the morning, and then come back. So he's very much about inclusion. He utilizes social media, knows every student's name. His students, had nothing but great things to say about him. Very well liked. The gentleman is very, very smart. Very smart. Has never said no to a budget request. That was quote unquote by a teacher. Let's see. Cares deeply, student-centered, student first. They have Journalism Academy there as well. They have some very impressive services that they offer to their students to try and keep them engaged. And I think socioeconomically, they're a little bit more challenged, very rural, and I think he's done a fantastic job. The guy is pretty charismatic, as I'm sure we'll see very shortly.
Dan?
I'm just trying to find what I don't have that he has so far. Detailed organizational skills, very good. Of course, with the charter private school. Of course, you know, like we said, he's been a teacher, athletic director, assistant principal. Mentoring of his staff. He has the journalism with athletic. I thought of Bob Rogers. Professional development. He's very big on that. Delegates to the teachers. Doesn't have issues. Lets them run with things, which was kind of good. Then you get down to parents. Accessibility with the parents, addressing issues quickly. His communication skills, they said, between staff, students, and parents across the board, very good. School committee, one thing I really got off that was the 90% graduation rate. They were impressed with that. The students, you know, it's like cheerleader section, go Mr. Mack, go Mr. Mack. He's very good. Always at every game. One thing all the way through all these different areas, the guys there every day, every event, even on Saturdays and Sundays, so the people who live close by, all they see is his Jeep out front. So, very well liked.
Fred?
If I could just add, I should have flipped over my pages. One thing, very robust band and arts programs. Band is part of their curriculum in the high school, which I thought was pretty different. They believe strongly within the arts, so to speak.
Okay, I agree with everything that they said, but there was another question they asked about their superintendent who's been there for 30-some-odd years. And the person answered it and said that the superintendent just put her letter of retirement in, like 5 or 6 days or a week ago.
It was termed after Kevin had already placed his applications and started down the road with all of you folks, I think was the way it was
I
said.
don't even know if he knew
He probably didn't.
to this point. The way they were talking, it was like.
Does he
still-
yet, since you just let the cat out of the bag?
He won't know.
He may not know.
Because
Okay.
I don't think
He
they
may
released
not
that
know.
information, they just told us.
I
I
don't
think-
know.
You asked about their superintendent, they go, well, they're retiring now. So-
Well, the way I asked the
Fred,
question, I think they thought we knew, so
Okay.
sort of just spilled out.
So, having said that, I agree with everything else that they said. They were in an older school building. The old Whitman Hanson building, if we still had it, we might be able to sell it to them if we could have moved it. Because they were in a pretty bad situation down there as far as their school district, and he seemed to be doing an okay job in a building that was pretty used up. I guess is an easier term to put it. It was pretty used up, so. Same as they were saying, all three candidates, I have to say, no matter who comes out and gets the #1 spot, so to speak, I think Whitman Hanson will be served pretty well because the people in all three districts that we went to loved all three people.
I say the committee did a good job at getting down to the final three.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask a quick question, Bob?
Yeah.
For the last candidate, budget and school size wise compared to Whitman Hanson?
School size, I believe, was 3,500 students.
Okay.
Right in that general vicinity. We didn't really get a budget
Okay.
situation. I asked the SPED director how much the budget was, and she told me between 33,000 and 50,000, so I think she might have been a little confused with the question because a school district that size could no way have a $33,000.
I think she was talking just that one school he was at, not the
Oh.
district.
If I'm not mistaken, his budget's somewhere between 9 and 10 million for the high school.
For the high school, yeah,
Okay, for the high school, okay.
yeah. And that's,
Okay.
like I said, I didn't ask him a question,
Yeah.
I asked her a question, and that's what the answer
Okay.
was.
Yeah, I was just
So-
curious size-wise, how they were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fairly, looked like a fairly, I mean, it was a giant school.
Yeah.
But it was a building that was added on to added on. Like,
Sure.
Every
he
10
walked
years.
us around and he went, this is the 60s version, this is the 70s version, this is the 80s version, this is
Yeah.
the 90s version. It was a giant, giant school district, but same thing.
Thank you.
Everybody loved all three of these candidates everywhere we went, site visit wise. Anything more on the site visits before we move to the questions? Questions from anybody on the committee? Bob? Anybody that didn't go? Steve? No? Okay, let's move. In your packet, you'll see, these are the questions that were sent in by the school committee to Michelle, and she was gracious enough to put them in 4 different categories. Standard 1, instructional leadership. If I'm going too fast, slow me down, because there's a ton of questions here, and we do have a timeline. The first one, what is your vision for the structure of positions at central office, and what type of candidate would you seek as assistant superintendent? And before we go any further, I'm sorry, I've got the cart before the horse. How many questions do you want to ask the candidates? When we did it in the structure last time, we asked 8 questions. We gave them a couple minutes to open, a couple minutes to finish, and asked them what they want, what they thought of us. I was going to keep that same format if no one has a problem. 6 or 8 questions.
Sure. I'm okay with that.
Mike,
Yes.
8,
7 or 8, yeah.
picking up.
8.
Bob, you good with that?
Sure,
Good.
that's
Or
fine.
too many?
Well, there's 8 of us here, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, then, sounds good.
8.
Yeah, I'm fine with 8.
Okay, all right, great. And you've got a bunch here, so I'm going to read them, run through them, and if you're keeping them, we'll put a 0 on them. And if you're not, but we got to get down to 8.
All right.
Okay.
I've got mine electronically, so.
I don't, well, that's okay, we'll do it, and you,
It's page.
okay, so the first one, what's your vision for the,
Right there in the-
what's your vision for the structure of positions at central office, and what type of candidate would you seek to hire as an assistant superintendent? Keep or move on?
Keep.
Keep.
Keep? Keep,
Keep.
Keep.
okay. Knowing our strategic plan for the Whitman Hanson School District, can you speak to your strengths in regard to each of the 3 pillars of our strategic plan and how you would continue to bring the district along? Robbie?
I'm just actually reading down the other ones too, so I can.
We can go back
See
and
what- see
forth,
what I-
let's see if
okay.
we can get it to 10.
Yeah, I'd actually like to keep that for the moment.
Dan?
Pass on that one.
Okay, Fred?
I'll agree to pass. I think that
Dan, Steve?
Other ones I'm on.
Well, I proposed it, it's a lot, but I'm happy to pass if others do.
Yeah, I think we could get at it with other questions, so I'll pass.
Yeah, we have to come back.
That's a pass.
Pass.
Okay, pass. What are the methods you will use to keep yourself and this board current on important matters?
Yeah.
Pass.
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 keep.
Keep.
Pass.
Passes have it. How would you initiate curriculum change? Robbie? Remember, we can go back if we
All right.
juggle this around.
I'll
The
say keep.
passes don't mean
No,
anything.
I'll say keep for now.
How would you initiate curriculum change? Keep?
Sure.
Dan?
Keep.
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 Keep?
Keep.
I would prefer the last question.
Okay.
Yeah, like one curriculum question, I think, should be.
I'm just thinking, of what is the staff's role in curriculum development? You would get into, how would you initiate curriculum development?
Can we,
Go keep.
Okay, we'll keep that for now. What is the staff's role in the curriculum development, Bob?
Keep.
I'd combine the two. I'd keep
Yeah.
it.
if we
I
can
think that-
combine them,
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to put them together?
Yeah.
Yes,
Put 'em
fine.
together.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right,
It makes more sense to put it, it's like a.
okay.
Yeah.
I got them together.
And between
How
the
would
two.
you initiate curriculum change, and what do you view the staff's role
Yeah,
in
okay.
the
All
development?
right, next one, standard management and operations. Here are several district goals that because of budget limitations have not become a reality. tuition-free, full-day kindergarten for all students in the district, foreign language instructions for students in grade 6 and up, the hiring of social workers at the elementary level, the hiring of permanent library and media specialists at the elementary level. Which of these goals seems like it should be a top priority?
Keep.
Keep, even though it's going to be a
Keep.
big one.
It's a long one, but yeah.
Mr. Bush?
Keep.
Keep.
We're going to have to,
We'll whittle it down a little bit from.
okay, yeah, we'll explain that as we go. In receiving complaints that our schools are not being cleaned properly, how do you see yourself enforcing the SJ Services cleaning contract to ensure we are getting our money's worth and applying fines for not, performing to the contract?
Keep.
I pass. Pass.
Pass. Yeah.
Keep.
Pass.
Keep.
Pass.
For the moment, I'll keep it. But if I'm gonna cut one loose, that might be.
What can a school district
That's a
do
keep, right?
about a marginally effective teacher or administrator? What will you do about a marginally effective teacher or administrator? Bob, Robbie?
I'll say keep for now.
I'll say keep for now.
Dan?
Pass.
Fred? Okay, 2 keeps, 1 pass.
Pass.
Sorry?
Pass.
2-2, pass.
Keep.
3-3,
I would pass. I think the contract basically
4-3.
takes
That's my
care of it.
reasoning as well.
The only thing I was
Pass.
wondering about was the
Okay, that's
administrators,
out.
more than the teachers.
Define the roles in the negotiation, define the roles in the negotiation process of the principal, superintendent, and leadership. Kevin, we'll start with you.
Pass.
Pass?
I would pass on that because, again, I think someone in this position would know enough
Yeah.
about that.
Pass.
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 Okay, that's done. How would you conduct a campaign for an annual general budget vote? Mr. Boyce?
I think I want to pass.
Keep.
Keep. Keep.
Keep.
Keep.
Me too, Kate, okay. Describe your experience with budget cuts, reallocation of funding, and monitoring a budget. Fred?
Keep.
Dan?
Keep.
Keep.
Kate?
We only have 3 left, I think. Yeah, keep.
Could you possibly roll that into the first one?
Yeah, probably.
We probably can.
Yeah.
Because they kind of work together, I think.
They might touch on it.
We can do
Anybody
A-
have an issue with
No,
that?
we can do A and B.
And I'll rearrange the first question.
Yeah.
So how would you conduct a
district goals
campaign?
No,
Or
describe your
Several
experience
goals,
with budget
okay.
Put it
cuts.
up in the goals, yeah.
You're talking about the one at the top of the page? Or the one right above
No,
it?
standard 2. First question.
District
Standard
goals?
2, yeah,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
district
All right,
goals,
all
yeah.
right, I'll put them together, we're gonna go back to it anyway.
Yep.
Turn the page, there can, standard 3, family and community engagement. There can always be better communication between the superintendent's office, the staff, and the politicians in both Whitman and Hanson. Please describe the steps you would take to improve communication. That's with all department heads in the shot.
Keep.
Keep.
I'm going to say pass because we don't know if everyone would be 100% knowledgeable of the standard as it is today. You know, if we're asking them to, how would you improve something if they don't know what the standard is?
We could reword it as to,
How would you
what their thought is on communicating.
communication.
So, I mean, we can reword it, but
Yeah.
I'm really interested
I
as to
would-
how they would do it.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we
So if you
take,
wanna
please
rework it.
describe the steps you would take to improve communication.
Yeah.
No,
Take-
steps you would take in communicating the district's visions and goals.
I don't wanna get into rewriting everything, but
No.
No, just put, how would you communicate between the superintendent's office, the staff, and
No,
both
yeah,
Whitman and
not,
Hanson?
not better communicate,
No,
just
just,
how would you?
how would you communicate?
Yeah.
Between
Because that,
the staff, the parents,
Yeah,
the town?
that's perfect.
How would you communicate?
Yeah,
Do it
how
that way.
would you? Yeah.
works real good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give that question to one of you two, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
of course.
Yeah, I know.
You hit the A part of it.
Okay. as it's rewritten.
Whatever. We'll keep it for now.
Okay.
I think the vote is already carried. I would kind
Yeah.
of rework
All right.
it completely, but I'll let it go.
What do you know about our community and our school district? I'm going to say no. Because
Yeah. should know.
Jeff knows more than the other two. Mike,
Yeah, pass.
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 Yes.
Out. What should a board member do when contacted by a parent with a school problem? What should a board member do?
Assume that means school.
Meaning us?
Yeah, that pass.
Their opinion of that?
Mike,
I'll pass for now. I get it.
Pass.
It'd be a quick question anyway.
is this you speaking to the lawyer in you? What are you doing?
I pass.
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 Yes.
Pass.
We can talk about that later. What is the difference between board goals and district goals? That's another, Bob,
I would pass on that.
Pass.
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 How would you go about establishing good public relations in the district? I think we have that covered.
That kind of goes with the first one.
First one.
Yeah, it does.
Goes with the first
One
one.
under three.
That's the main thing is public relations.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, so we'll kind of reword that and add it together.
yeah.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah, this one and the next one.
Bob, you okay with that?
Yes, I am, thanks.
What communication methods would you use between the district and the community? I think all three of those.
Merge all three of them together. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody all right with that? I'll start rewriting it as we're going down the. Describe presentations you have made in your community to parents, school board members, professional association, or other teachers. Kevin?
Pass.
Sorry?
I would pass on that one.
Bob?
Yeah, I'll take a pass on that.
Pass.
Pass.
Fred?
Pass.
I'm gonna pass. I think that's with somebody else that is.
Yeah.
Standard 4, professional culture. Describe your vision for our schools, Robbie.
Yeah, I'd like to keep that one.
Dan?
Yeah, keep that one.
Fred?
Keep.
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 Yep, keep it.
Yes.
Keep.
Okay. And last but not least, what is the staff's role in curriculum
It kind of
development?
goes up to one of those other
Yeah,
ones.
we have that.
Yeah, I think we already have
Staff's role
that.
in curriculum development.
That's in there.
It's under, yeah, we checked it off already.
How would you initiate curriculum change, and what is the staff's role? in
Yeah.
curriculum?
Yeah, the first
I'll
one.
pass because that's already in there.
Okay, yeah, that's,
Yep.
all right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, we thought we were gonna have two
Four,
minutes.
five.
But some of them are lengthy. Some of
Yes.
them are lengthy answers, so we may,
No, we gotta go over it again.
Well, Rob, the one that's 3 questions, you're
Yeah.
asking it.
it's in 3 parts.
We got
It's in 3
7.
parts.
I have 2 under one.
I got 7.
Yeah, I got 7.
Yeah, but we're combining.
1, 2,
No, I know, even with the
3,
combined.
4,
Yeah.
Standard one,
I don't
the
have my
first one is the
glasses.
keep.
The first one and the last 2 are key.
5.
Right.
They're merged. That's,
Right,
There's 2.
so that's 1 and 2.
Yeah.
standard 2, the first question is a 4-part question almost,
Yeah,
merged into one.
well,
Pick one.
oh, yeah, I see. Okay, and then we were keeping that one, and we were keeping the
That's
second.
true.
Right.
What about the complaints to the
3,
SJ?
4, yeah,
And we're
that's it.
keeping the last 2.
5, okay,
No, I thought we kept the
All right, the
Yeah.
question on that,
6,
6.
7.
It's perfect.
the SJ services, was that yes or no?
No,
Yeah.
please.
'Cause I had
see it.
that
There's a
I had that as,
50/50.
That's 2 combined.
Yeah,
I don't know
Three.
which way that one.
Four,
Include
yeah.
these.
That's why I
This is
had
Yeah,
three.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
all 3.
It's okay.
And you said this is 4 with these, and that's 5.
I had 5 the first clip.
Right, so you
Okay,
Yeah.
How would you understand?
how about if we do, seeing as there's 8 of us, if we do 7 and I don't ask any questions?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if I ask.
Yeah, 7's
or not.
Well-
I just care the questions get asked and answered.
Okay, so let's go over it again,
Next.
because Michelle has a little different. The first one, standard 1, instructional leadership. What is your vision for the structure of positions at Central? We're keeping that.
Yep.
Yep.
The next keeper,
assign it while we're here.
The
Would you like
next,
to have it?
Sure,
Robbie,
sure.
okay.
okay, Robbie.
Rob's got number
The
one.
next one is the two together. How would you initiate curriculum change, and what is the staff's role in curriculum development? That's going to be one question.
That's Mr. Trotter.
I'll ask that question.
Okay, Bob. The next one is, here are several district goals that, because of budget limitations, have not become a reality. Tuition-free, full-day K, and for all students in the district, foreign language instruction for students in grade 6 and up, the hiring of social workers at the elementary level, the hiring of permanent libraries and media specialists. Which of these goals seems like it should be a priority?
That's Mr. Cullity.
Well, you also have to put in there describes the experience of the budget cuts.
Yeah. You want to add the bottoms?
Yeah.
How would you conduct a campaign for the budget vote?
I think you should keep.
No, that can be just
No.
one
Have to ask
question, the
them
last two.
We got to keep that.
Leave the last
The
two
last
together.
two should be,
The last two
Last
together.
two together.
Who's going to do three, Mr. Cullity?
yes.
Number three.
So Dan, you got that.
Fred can do the
Number
bottom two.
4 is going to be, how would you conduct a campaign for your annual general budget vote?
And we're gonna combine that with the next one, I thought.
Describe your experience of the
Right.
budget cuts, yep.
Okay, Fred, you want to do that one?
That's fine.
So whatever you say, they gotta say.
Okay, the next one is, Dick, and how would you,
How would you like this? How would you go about establishing a good public relations between the superintendent's office, the staff, and the politicians in both Whitman and Hanson? Please describe the steps. Take the first part of the second one down there and eliminate the first part of the first one.
okay?
That sounded
You
good.
That combined 3 of them.
Yep. That sounded good.
Okay, so who's doing that one?
Mr. Lyman.
I don't understand that one. I think, who's the one who came up with that? Is that Dan?
Actually, we'll Dan
I
do that
think
one.
Dan could do that one.
Have Dan do that
I'll-
one.
I'll switch with you.
You and Dan switch, yeah. There we go.
All right,
Here
we
we
got a
go.
switch going on.
Kind of doing the top floor.
He's
I'm
doing
glad it's-
just
The amendment, there you go.
No.
No.
The next one's, how would
So
you
Dan's got all that.
I got this bullshit.
describe, how would you go about establishing good public relations in the district? It's going to go up to the top one
That's gonna be
that Dan's
this,
going to take.
right,
Yes.
Right, and communication methods.
Yes.
Okay?
4, that's 5.
And the last one is describe your vision for our
Describe your
school.
visions for our school.
Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Boyce? All right, who doesn't have a question other than
Mr.
me?
Jones and...
Jones.
Mr. Jones and Mr.
Bob's got a question.
I have a question.
You okay? You want to?
I'm okay.
Mike, yeah, my question.
You want mine?
You want mine, Mike?
I'm okay.
I don't need to ask anything.
Is there anyone that anybody wants to add back, and we'll give it a mic?
Yeah, that might be fun.
Are these both?
I like my, about the strategic plan. And I can take that, second one down, standard one.
Who's doing this one?
We're not.
We were passing
That was
on
a-
that, but we
passed
could
that.
add it
That was a
back in.
question mark.
Yeah.
I thought,
Which one's that?
I had a
SJ
question mark in
Services.
receiving
Oh.
complaints that our schools are not being cleaned properly. How do you see yourself enforcing SJ Services cleaning
Jonesy want
contract?
that one?
I can do that.
Next it,
Okay.
Mike?
Oh,
Jonesy.
okay.
I can do that.
Yeah, that's good.
That's Jonesy.
that's right, you're right.
So we're doing that one, okay.
Mike's doing cleanup.
That's
Okay.
gonna be number 7.
So now, does everybody know what their question is before we get the first candidate in?
Establishing good public relations between the superintendent.
Thank you, Michelle. Keeping us in line. Somebody better do it.
who's this?
Michelle,
Somebody needs-
can you just, I'll go get the candidate. Can you just get on the list with everybody, make sure they have the right?
Thanks, Bob.
It goes John Marcus, Kevin McNamara, Jeff Simonak. Correct?
Plug the top.
Everybody's on the same page?
Yes.
Yes.
I think. We'll find out.
Some notes. Yeah. I'll break my note notes.
This is it?
Finally break it down, take it notes.
Usually. It's usually.
Who do I go after?
Budget.
Oh, we're just going like.
Okay, yeah, so I go after
How do you
Jonesy.
think that is? How would you go? Establish a good
Oh,
public
after,
relations
oh,
between the superintendent's office, the staff, and politicians.
Fred, are you asking the bottom?
Huh?
You asking these two on the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just go communication.
Just gonna- How would you
Instead of
conduct a
this.
campaign
Yeah, that's what I
for
was gonna say, it's
an annual
almost
general
identical
budget
to
vote?
public
A, I'm gonna say I have a two-part question. And then B, please describe your experience with budget cuts, reallocation of funds, or monitoring a budget.
Are we going right around?
I think we're bouncing.
Oh, yeah?
I thought.
Yeah, it's
We're
Robbie.
just gonna go in the order of the questions.
It's Robbie, me,
Yeah.
Kevin, Mike, Fred, Dan,
You
and
for
Steve.
me?
Yep.
Okay. Robbie? Say that again, Robbie? Kevin? Yep.
Me,
Ooh,
Kevin,
Kevin,
okay.
Mike,
you.
Fred.
So they all in sitting in with Jeff?
Yeah,
The three of them?
they got their heads on. What was that game show?
I get to be my assistant. I'll be yours.
Told you. I was thinking two of these guys were working.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, John.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
John, how are you? We're going to let you introduce yourself to us. We'll quickly go around the table. We're going to do this very similar to the format we did with the screening committee. We'll give you a couple of minutes to give us an opening statement.
Okay.
We've got 7 questions. We'll give you some time, and you might want to ask us a question like we did in the screening committee,
Okay.
and then you can do your close. If you're
Great.
getting close, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Mike?
Michael Jones, School Committee, Hanson?
Michael.
Bob Trotter, School Committee Whitman.
Hi, Bob.
Kevin Lineham, School Committee, Whitman.
Hi, Kevin.
Bob Hayes, School Committee, Hanson.
Bob.
And I'm sorry, Kyle, I didn't mean to go by you, we just,
I don't have a vote, but Assistant Superintendent.
Hi, Kyle.
Services, Kyle.
Good to see you.
Steve Boy, School Committee, Whitman.
Hi, Steve.
Fred Small, School Committee, Whitman.
Hi, Fred.
Dan Kennedy, School Committee, Whitman.
Dan.
Rob O'Brien, School Committee, Hanson.
Rob.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Christine Suko, Executive Business Services.
Christine.
Chad Peters, Director of IT.
Hi, Chad.
Michelle Lindberg, Superintendent Secretary.
Nice to see you.
okay. John, again, thank you for coming out on this rainy day, and we appreciate you for applying, and we loved going to your school. It was vibrant, and we had quite a group that we met. It was exciting. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for giving me this opportunity. I'd just like to start by saying about a year ago, when I wasn't made the superintendent in Sharon, people kept saying to me, oh, things happen for a reason. And I didn't believe them then. I was sort of like, oh, I don't know. You know, I've been here. I thought that this was my thing. And but then last week I came here, and after interviewing with a really great team, I ended up walking through the building, and I have never seen a school so vibrant, a community feeling so alive, students playing violin, the band concert, the wrestling team, gentlemen exercising, which was awesome, and then coming around the corner to the mural and seeing all of the amazing things that were going on. It was so invigorating. As I walked out of the school, there was a dad with a little toddler, 2-year-old, playing on the snowbank, giggling and laughing, and I started to believe that actually good things do come, that this is something that might be really exciting, and that it might have found a place. There was something really special about this place and that experience that I had that night. So this weekend, I was fortunate enough to get the call from you all, and so this weekend, my wife, Amory, and I drove around Whitman and Hanson, stopped over at the hitching post, is that it, the old hitching post? And had breakfast over there, which was delicious, and then went over to Mary Lou's in Whitman, and I stopped a couple of people and said, so what is it about this place? What do you like about this place? And to a person, they all said, the people. And I loved it. And there again, it was one of those amazing moments. Like, this is a fit. This is a match. That's what I'm all about, is people. The people I've met who I met that first night, the folks who came to Sharon, and the people that I've met in my visits, and then the folks that I know from from these two places, these two towns, are good, honest, hardworking people who really just want the best for their kids. And that's me. That's what I'm all about. And it's always been my focus since I was a first grade teacher all the way to being assistant superintendent. So I'm excited to be able to be here and offer my skills, my talents, my passion, my energy to this really wonderful place.
John, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Question 1.
John, what is your vision for the structure of positions at the central office, and what type of candidate would you seek to hire as an assistant superintendent?
Thank you. So thanks for that question. I think it's important. And as I was looking at the current structure and the changes that you all have had over the last year or so, it's clear that it would be important to have some kind of an organizational assessment and really figure out what would be the best structure in order to have in place for the district moving forward. So I wouldn't want to presume to say, okay, I know everything. I think that one of the things that I bring my leadership style is really about collaboration and listening to the collective voices and forming partnerships. So I wouldn't presume to come in and say, I've got this place because I've had these experiences here, there, and other places. I want to come in and I want to pay attention and listen and see what the needs are. And that would be part of my entry plan and something that I would want to start doing as soon as possible to really figure out what does Whitman Hanson really need in terms of that laser focus on kids, and how do we ensure that we're doing the best we possibly can. So is that an assistant superintendent who's really focused in on curriculum and instruction, and is that one of the key goals that we have? I do see that in your budget planning. I see it in some of the goals of the district in the strategic plan and the 3 pillars. And so it's clear that there's a curricular strand. And I am thrilled and happy to bring my curricular expertise that I've garnered over the last 20-something years. But I do see that is something that might be an important part of a leadership team, is somebody who's really focused in and bringing additional ideas from other places to really build on the successes that are happening now, and then to take new ideas and bring them forward. So I think that's one critical area is looking at curriculum instruction and how we're going to support that. I also think that it's important to look at the overall efficiencies that you have in central office and see where there might be opportunities for growth or adjustment or change. And again, that's not something that I would recommend anybody coming in and saying, well, we used to do it this way. That's something that really has to be born out of some real study, lots of conversation, lots of discussion with folks, and an analysis done in a careful way about what would be best practice for that. And then you've got, that's central office, and then, obviously that filters out into the conversations about what our leadership structure and what our organizational staff structure looks like across the district and how we would do that. So I know, again, with McQuan closing and all that, there's lots of changes and adjustments, and so that's something that I've been a part of, and it's something that I would happily bring to the district to support a lot of the growth and change that's happening here.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Question 2.
Over here, me. You touched upon possibly, you might look for someone like a assistant superintendent for curriculum. Currently, we have curriculum directors. So my question's a 2-part question. If you had to, how would you initiate curriculum change, and what would be the staff's role in curriculum development?
Great. So I think first and foremost, I'm really about grassroots development of curriculum, and that involves getting folks out into the field and participating and being members and learning about what great things are happening in other places. Teachers teaching teachers, I think, is one of the most powerful tools that we have, and so I'm a huge supporter of getting folks to be able to go and visit and explore and participate in workshops and courses and things like that, and then bring that back to the district and have those kinds of conversations on a grassroots level, because that's really where exciting things happen. When we, in Sharon, brought in a website kind of a thing to have everybody be able to communicate electronically with parents, one of the mistakes that we made was that we brought it in and kind of top down said, well, here are the rules. So we're going to have these rules and everybody's going to kind of do the same thing. And it didn't go very well. You know, we got some buy-in, but not a lot. We kind of went to the least common denominator. About 3 years later, some teachers went out, they went to a workshop in Boston, came back and said, we saw this thing called Schoology. It's some kind of learning management thing. We don't really know what it's about, but can we investigate more? So together I formed a group of teachers. We went out and as a team investigated, went to the webinars and things like that, and they then said, this is something we want, and then I found the way to support that growth. That learning management system, while it's really just a skeleton, has allowed our teachers to grow technologically in incredibly powerful ways, because it provides an amazing structure, an amazing system that lets the teachers communicate with students and parents in all kinds of new ways. It allows them to create course content digitally and offline, and it was really a grassroots effort. So for me, what I learned in that experience is find the ways to support your teachers, to get them to be able to see other kinds of experiences and pedagogy, and then find ways to support that growth. So that's the first part. Tell me again the second part.
Well, basically was, what is the staff's role in curriculum development?
Yeah.
And the other part would be, how would you initiate curriculum change?
Yeah. So, so I think that's a big part of how I go about initiating change. Some of it I think comes from either outside influences, so state influences of the change in the math science standards, so the STE standards, and those coming along, and suddenly we're not aligned anymore. So that's something that creates the impetus for us to have professional development and change and things like that. And sometimes it comes from the culture and how things are growing, like our one-to-one program and how that evolved and how we developed that program. Again, thinking carefully about who are the folks at the ground level, what kinds of things are they looking for, what are the goals that are really important to them, that are, again, focused on kids and what is best for kids, and how do we find the supports and the structures, the organization, and the finances in order to make this kind of a thing happen. So it didn't completely come from grassroots the way that the Schoology thing did, but it really came from, as it came from the outside and from the shifts in how we're looking at devices and technology. My mission was to then bring a group of parents, teachers, students together, form that partnership, and really work on and develop how this program is going to be rolled out in the best possible way. So,
thanks, John.
Sure.
Thank you. Question 3?
Sure. So, hi, John.
Hey, Kevin.
This one's long, so I'll just read the text, then I'll sort of paraphrase it to make it easier to digest. So, here are several district goals that, because of budget limitations, have not become a reality. Tuition-free, full-day kindergarten for all students in the district, foreign language instruction for students in grades 6 and up, the hiring of social workers at the elementary level, the hiring of permanent library media specialists at the elementary level. Which of these goals seems like it should be the top priority? So this is a greatest hits of things we've had in the budget and then got cut when we get the final numbers from the town. And we keep wheeling around these priorities. And so I'm asking, which one would you put at the top? So it's all-day K, languages in the middle school, social workers at elementary, library media specialists at the elementary.
So That's a tough one to pick just one. You've got, and I have printed out the budget document and the goals that you all have come to put out there for the district, and they're amazing. So, and I don't know the best way necessarily to pick just one, other than, again, to have conversations and form partnerships and find out what really is the will of the community. That's, again, one of the important things about how I operate, is to make sure that I'm hearing the voices of everybody and not necessarily coming at it from, my own singular perspective, but really hearing the perspectives of others and bringing the coalitions together to find a balanced way to support kids as much as possible. Speaking of supporting kids as much as possible, I would have to say personally, especially in light of yesterday's awful events, that our mission of supporting students and their mental health and their social emotional strength and well-being has got to be paramount for us these days. That it isn't that, and I know that you all are in the Excel partnership, the network. I think it's amazing. I applaud that, and I would love to be a part of that and support that. And I think that part of that mission of Excel and other folks who are really invested in SEL work is really about how, by giving kids the tools and the strength and the empowerment to feel good and strong about themselves and about the world, that then does numbers twofold, threefold, fourfold in terms of their academic success, in terms of their ability to give back to the community, in terms of their ability to take brick and mortar, a beautiful brick and mortar, and actually turn it into that thing that I heard so much about, about people and about building up people and making them stronger and making the community a better place to be. So for me, that piece about supporting our students' well-being and their fortitude and their empowerment and their growth is just as much about the academics as it is about the emotional piece, the social emotional piece. So, so if I had to pick one, that's, I think, where I would go. But I would want to, just to share that I do think that one of the most important curricular shifts or changes that I've ever seen, and it's been 25 some odd years, is full-day kindergarten. And how you get there is really tricky. So I was incredibly fortunate to be in a district where we got hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants to be able to implement, to start off full-day kindergarten back in the early 2000s. And so the actual cost to the district wasn't as extreme, but each year it went from $375, the second year $175, the third year $75. So each year that funding source started to drain away a little bit. And what was amazing was that it was my fourth year, my final year in the district, in a tough economic time, and it was amazing to see the passion that the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the teachers brought to the table, brought to town meeting in order to make it so clear and so important that the town actually ended up adopting the model and spending the money in order to make it happen. I can't say that that's true everywhere else. I left that district that Bob knows about very well and went over to Sharon, and I had the same mission and the same goal and the same hope, but there just wasn't the financial structure or the will from the populace to really pull that off. It's a $500,000-$600,000 request, and even though we were passionate about it, there were too many other priorities, and so we've maintained a paid full-day kindergarten. It's still an incredibly powerful and important model, and what we've done in order to make it better for folks is we're at about $3,200, and we instituted a couple of years ago a $25,000 line item in the budget that then funds as many people as we possibly can to bring the cost down for families. So that scholarship program is a small thing, but it's chipping away at providing that cost. We've also looked at efficiencies, and we've tried to bring that cost down as much as we possibly can. And every year we bring it back up to say, is that possible? Is this the year where we've got that $500,000 to be able to make it happen? So I wanted to put that out there as, I don't want to let that one go because it's a pretty important program.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Question 4?
Hey, John.
Hi.
In receiving complaints that our schools are not being cleaned properly, how do you see yourself enforcing the SJ Services cleaning contract to ensure that we get our money's worth and are applying fines for not performing to the contract?
Great, thank you. I've been involved with the operations side of things from my position as Director of Technology, and even moving into the Assistant Superintendency, where I've maintained a lot of those connections. I actually ended up, when our Facilities Director unfortunately got very sick, I ended up taking over those responsibilities for 3 months. Then he retired, left the district for a little while, and there was a gap, so I ended up taking over again. And so I've had a lot of experiences working with our maintenance staff, with our custodians, supporting them as best I possibly can. Sharon also has outsourced cleaning. We use a company called NSF, and we have those issues of figuring out ways to ensure that we have liaisons between the outsourced company and the school staff. How are we making sure that there's communication there? That's a really critical piece of that, and it's making sure that there are communication systems in place so that when people are concerned or something isn't happening, something isn't getting cleaned correctly, that there are communication systems in place in order for us to make that happen. So we have the regular school dude. Do you guys use school dude?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So we have that process where people put those in. What we've instituted about a year ago was a way of actually then going back and looking at completed work or work that's in progress that hasn't been completed work that we want to check on, but work in progress to make sure that it's being done in as timely a manner as possible. And then the communication piece is we actually then went outside of school duty, and we're just using our regular email system as a way to ensure that we're communicating back with the constituents, so teachers, staff, whatever, in order to make sure that they know where we're at and what's happening. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues, is that folks just, they put in their ticket and then they don't know. And so communication is really a critical piece in lots of the things that I would talk about tonight. But I think that's one of them, is really having the ability for people to communicate and let us know. I have had to have difficult conversations with both our internal staff and the outsourced cleaning staff. And to be able to sort of sit down and have those difficult conversations, to give people voice and to be able to listen to their perspective and honor that folks usually feel like they're doing a really good job. And so you want to honor them and honor what they're doing and what they feel like is good hard work, and then offer suggestions and tweaks, and sometimes have to go down the difficult path of actually finding a new way or new people in order to be able to do it. But I've had those experiences. I'm very comfortable with that, and I think I'm comfortable with it not because they're easy kinds of conversations, but because I come at things from a very open, honest, and collegial kind of a stance. And so I'm not going to go in it with, I'm the heavy and I know all the answers, but I want to find out what's going on and I want to do what's best for kids. So as long as we have that common ground and that shared commitment, then let's figure out a way to do what's best for kids.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next question?
I have a two-part question.
Okay.
The first part is, how would you conduct a campaign for an annual budget, general budget vote, I'm sorry? And if you could please describe your experiences with budget cuts, reallocation of funds, or monitoring a budget.
Right. So, I've been involved in budgets for a long time, and as I may have described, I've lived through zero-based budgets, level-funded budgets, and the, oh my God, we're in a crisis budget. So I've done them all, and I think the most important thing, and I joked with Christine earlier, so you clearly have heard this concept about transparency, that there's nothing more important than that in terms of building a budget. And the transparency is not just about, you know, we're going to show you everything we have. It's really about, we're going to tell you the story of who we are, who is Whitman Hanson, what do we believe in, what are our values, what are our goals, and where we're headed, and telling that story in the best and most out there way, the best way possible to get the story out to the community. I believe that involves having or establishing relationships with the town side. So getting over to the two town halls, having conversations with folks, what are the town's priorities, where are you heading, what kinds of things are you all about, and here's where we're excited to be able to move forward. I've done that in the position that I'm in now, where I've gotten out of the office and get over to the police department, the fire department, the town hall, and establish relationships and make connections and understand where folks are coming from, and then create that common ground. What do we want? We want the best for the community, so let's figure out a way to do that together. And we've done that in a number of different ways, from you know, changing out our street lights to LEDs. I don't know if you guys have done that, but you know, things like that where I've worked together with our facilities person, and we figured out, and I've taken some of my tech people and figured out a way in order to get them some time so that we can support the town and make something like that happen. I think having those kinds of community connections is incredibly important. I've also made sure that the schools are part of the community. We just wrote a grant, and I noticed that Hanson, as a town, wrote a grant for this last year. I'm seeing that Whitman didn't, but it's something that we put together that I think the schools could do, called the Community Compact. I don't know if you've heard of that, but there's a Community Compact. It's the Community Compact Cabinet, and there's an IT component of that Community Compact Cabinet that's $200,000, up to $200,000. So we'll talk, Chad, because it's something that you could use for a variety of different purposes. I'm not sure that they would necessarily say, oh yeah, we're going to fund your one-to-one initiative, but you can parlay the funding from that so that you don't have to spend that on whatever, and be able to use that same kind of funding for something else. So we just wrote a grant for about $98,000 in order to upgrade our cable TV services and all that. And part of that grant is, to your question, Fred, about how we have outreach to the community, to make connections with the community in order for them to feel like they're part of the schools. We want the residents who don't necessarily send their kids to school or aren't necessarily that connected to actually have connections with us. So yeah, we do the going out to the senior center with our technology help desk kids, and we work with folks on how to get onto Facebook and how to use Twitter, and those kinds of things. And that's great outreach, because it's 12, 14 votes that you didn't have before you made that outreach. But this idea is really using technology as a way to offer courses or workshops or history lessons for here about the history of Whitman and Hanson and what that's all about, and people then chiming in and listening to it and realizing that this is Whitman Hanson content. This is school department content that they're having delivered, that then they say, wow, I like this, I want this, and I want to be connected to it, and that brings more connection and more interest and more investment in the school. So that's another thing that I've tried to do is really give folks an opportunity to get personally invested in what's happening in the schools and give them that reason to then show up and say, yeah, those budget items are important, and we believe in those with you because we're getting community service as well. So reaching out to the community, I think, is critical.
Thank you.
Sure.
Fred, is that got a part two? Or did you?
I gave part two, but if you'd please describe your experiences with budget cuts.
Oh, thank you.
Reallocation of funds or monitoring a budget.
Thank you. So this has been a tough year for us. We're looking at reorganizing and trying to figure out ways that we're going to curb it's about a $1.8 million deficit. And some of that we're looking at ways of restructuring things and ways of sort of cutting back on some of the extra electives that might be offered at the high school or things like that. But it's a tough experience. And one of the things that I think I've learned from this experience is that piece of transparency that's also not just about here's where we are, but here are some of the difficulties that we're facing, and having the opportunity for folks to be involved up front and early on, as opposed to sort of finding out something after the fact, or for us to be sort of in a back room and making decisions and then spring something on the general population at the last minute. I think I've seen how critical it is to be able to be open and honest about where we're at and the kinds of things that we're hoping to be able to do, but then the kinds of things that we may have to look at in order to be able to just get to that place where we've got an accepted budget. So this year we're looking at a variety of different positions that are really difficult to swallow. And last night we had a budget forum, an open budget forum, that we had hundreds of people come out to support a few really critical areas, and be able to speak to that. I think that forum was really a great idea, and I think that's an important thing to do. I do think that it came a little bit late, that part of the open forum needed to be more about here's what we're facing, here are the specific numbers, and we want you to be able to give us some feedback about what's important to you, what can't we lose, what are the key features for children and their classrooms, in their classrooms, and how do we make sure that that support doesn't go away. So I think we were a little bit late to that, and coming here, having learned that lesson from this year, I would say when it comes to budget season and being able to get everything appropriately done and support difficult decisions, it's really about communication and about being open and honest with the community.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Next question?
Okay. Hey, John. How would you go about establishing good public relations between the superintendent's office, the staff, and the politicians in both Whitman and Hanson? Followed up with, what communication methods would you use between the district and the community?
So I think similar to the answer I gave a little while ago about getting out there and being an active member of the community, I think that's something that I'm really excited about. In that opening sort of statement that I gave, I'm the kind of person who puts in long hours and is incredibly committed and loyal to the place that I work. And that's why I think it felt so good for me to come here and be able to say, wow, this is a place that I can give that kind of energy and commitment. So in that sense, that's the kind of thing that I do now, and that's the kind of thing that I would want to do when I came here, is to be able to not sit up in an office and kind of hang out there and make decisions from afar, but really be out in the community, not only in the schools, which I think is absolutely critical. I've talked about how I start every day in a different building, and I walk around and make connections with teachers and staff, the kitchen workers, the principal, the secretaries, that I'm always out there and making those connections in the schools. But I'm also, I think, really, really committed to making those connections with the head of the rec department, with the selectmen, with again, the fire and police department. I've got great friends on those two groups, and that is all about fun, laughter, coming at things with a sense of humor, and having that sort of shared commitment and that shared value about what we really believe in. So it's getting out there and making those connections, making those commitments, and creating communication systems that are available for folks to be able to come in and let us know what they want, what do they need. One of my mentors, this amazing principal, Miriam Cronish, taught me that every time you go somewhere, whether you're walking into a classroom or you're going into the selectman's office or whatever, that you go in there and you have two questions, which is, what do you need, and how can I help? So if you go in with that sort of service mentality, that I'm here to help, I'm here to serve, I'm here to work together with you to make things better, you're always going to have people come back with, wow, this is about collaboration, this is about partnership, let's do this together. It's about team. So forming those teams as much as humanly possible with whoever that is, in order to do great things for kids, great things for families. So that's really what I try to do as much as I can.
Okay, next question.
Hi, John. Describe your vision for our schools.
That's a short but important question.
Leave the tough ones.
I would say that what I've seen in the paperwork and the website, the folks that I've met so far, the folks who've come to visit, that your vision about doing what's best for every student every day, that concept, and being able to advance learning and be able to have students go through the schools and come out with not only the academic skills, but the social skills, the emotional skills, and the technological skills to be able to not just enter the workforce or go to college or whatever, but really to have a mindset that learning never stops, and that what I've learned is that what's most important about life is giving back, and finding ways for me to build my community and make the place stronger, make it better for the next generation, for my brother or sister who's younger than me, for families or senior citizens or anybody who's here, to be able to make life better. So my vision, I would say, is to see the district continue to grow in some of the initiatives that you've talked about in terms of STEAM and special education support, the one-to-one program, things like that. I think that those are all incredibly important. I would say 5 to 10 years from now, I would see successful students giving back as the most important thing, strong social emotional opportunities and empowerment, opportunities for student-directed learning, so not just where the curriculum is sort of coming at kids, but also kids being able to figure out ways that they can influence what kinds of learning experiences they're going to be able to have as well. So choice is an important thing for me. Global experiences, global awareness, and global learning, I think, is incredibly important today. I'd love to see us, and I know that as I was reading the materials, you've got great partnerships with North River and other collaboratives. I'd love to see us continue that and grow those partnerships with other districts. There's nothing better than having connections with either nearby districts or similar districts where you're working on projects together and working on professional development or those kinds of things to grow together. So I'd love to see more of that. And I think I'd love to see a stable and continually growing budget that we together work on. I think the critical piece about being able to pitch and sell a budget and communicate in a wide variety of ways, and I think that's always important. I'd love to be able to see either state funding formulas or voter connections and commitment, town connections and commitment, to be able to grow in a way that that you're not necessarily, or we're not necessarily looking every year at how do we even get to a place where we're just rolling over basic services. And I know that's a tall order, that's a biggie, but I look forward to being able to work with some smart people here and connections with folks that I've made over the years to be able to figure out a way to do that, because I do think that having somebody who is charismatic and excited and energetic and communicating out to the communities and selling what is great about our district to Whitman and Hanson is really what leads to all of those other things, you know, all of that other, those great things that I hope to see in the next 5 to 10 years. And it comes from not just an individual, but from that individual forming partnerships and relationships with some really great people you already have here, with the school committee, with families, to be able to build that kind of a model so that you've got that kind of a stable, strong budget from one year to the next.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can I ask another question?
Go ahead, Bob.
Being a former teacher and administrator,
Yeah.
And you would be coming into a system in which the superintendent's been here for quite some time.
Yeah.
How would you transition in to meet staff, administrators, cafeteria people, to make them feel comfortable, particularly with someone new and with someone who might have some new ideas?
Thanks. That's a great question. I think you hear a lot about entry plans, and you hear a lot about people sort of writing up entry plans and coming in and doing listening tours and all that stuff. For me, the entry plan is being me. It's really at the foundation of who I am, and getting out there and having those kinds of important conversations with folks, and being in classrooms and being at the ground level, and having the many, many kinds of conversations about, again, those two questions: what do you need? Where are you headed? What do you wish for? What are your hopes and dreams? And how can I clear the path in order to make that happen? Or how can I find other folks or find partnerships or collaborations in order to make something magical happen? So it's really, to me, about what I do every day. It's nonstop getting out there and being connected and having conversations, and coming at those conversations not from a stance of, I've got something to tell you or I've got something to show you, but really an openness and an honoring and celebration of what you bring to that relationship, to the school district, to your classroom, to your family, and how can I find ways to celebrate that and support that and make it something really powerful. So that's what I've done. I think when I became a principal in each of the buildings that I've been in, when I became the director of technology, and when I became the assistant superintendent, each one of those was really preceded by and continually followed up with this notion of being open, paying attention, communicating as much as humanly possible, listening, and finding ways to open the door to what people really are looking for and wishing and hoping for their classroom, themselves, their kids, in the best way possible.
Thank you.
Sure.
You would have a quick question? John, do you have any questions for us?
So I'm wondering, and I think this is probably true for anybody who's coming from the outside, wondering what your hopes and wishes are. And so I guess I would say, if there was one quality or one idea, one word to describe what you hope for in your next superintendent, what might that be?
Would anyone like to answer that?
Be better. Do better.
Do better. I think someone who can communicate and relate to the staff. That's 2 words, but that's okay. I'm Italian, I can.
Kev?
I'd say be a comforting presence. I think there's a lot of uncertainty about where where the central office is going. I mean, you know, our previous 2 superintendents were here for a really long time, and people don't really know what to expect when things suddenly change and a bunch of new faces come in all at the same time.
Right.
So I think that's important.
Absolutely.
Mr. Boyce, you're all going to get a shot at this. This is a question and answer.
Continuity and longevity. I think it speaks volumes.
Great.
And I can also add the comforting factor and staying ahead of the curve.
Yep. Great.
Fred?
One word, goat.
Goat.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll give you my
And if we-
my Julian Edelman.
Well, it's Tom Brady, but
No, I know, but I'm going to give you my Julian Edelman quote.
look at what qualities he brings. He practices, he studies, he pushes himself. He always wants to succeed, and he always wants to get better and make everyone else around him better.
That's the key, yeah.
And that's what I would look
Right.
for in our next.
Absolutely.
Mr. Cullity?
Yeah, I would like to see probably better public relations to get to sell the school district to both towns, because I think we're a hard sell in both
Okay.
towns.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien?
To kind of sum it all up, I guess, community. Same thing, looking for somebody, you know, PR, somebody that's going to be a go-getter, somebody that's going to bring some change, yet be able to hit the ground running. Yeah, and build like a better sense of community between the school district and the 2 municipalities, because both municipalities are very different
Yeah.
in their needs and wants.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
All right. We had some great questions, and I think we had some great answers, and I'm glad you put them all on the spot, because it's,
Well, it's important for me to hear those kinds of things, because, again, when I walked away and thought, wow, this could really be a match, I haven't had a chance to necessarily say, what do you think? Like, is this, you know, does my skill set sort of fit with what you're looking for? And this is great. I mean, this is an incredibly important list about doing better, setting the bar higher, setting high expectations for all of us, communications and building relationships. I hope that I've conveyed that, and I hope that the folks who came to visit saw that that's really the number one thing that I do. Continuity and longevity, I think, is an important one, and I'm glad you said that, Steve, because I'm really looking for those 2 things for me. So for me, I'm not looking to go to a place and be there for a couple of years and move on to whatever. I have no interest in that. I'm looking for that place, that next place that is going to be the place. And so I'm looking, when we're talking about a 10-year plan, I'm going to be there for that 10 years and do everything, you know, give the energy and excitement and all of that I can. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think that's what, you know, that's what's really critical. The public relations piece, I think, is what I've been doing for the last several years, whether it's being a principal or trying to pitch a $250,000 commitment to technology from one year to the next. It's always about communicating and selling, and not just pitching, here's all the great things that we're doing, but here are our needs, and here's why it's important to invest in those needs. So to Dan's point about, you know, having the communities come together and making a strong case for what the schools are all about, that's really my hope, my wish for me and what I'd be able to do. And to Fred's point about GOAT, one of my closing statement things that you stole it from me, but that's okay, is a quote from Julian Edelman, who was talking about what makes Tom Brady great, and it's the fact that he makes everybody else want to be great. Now, whether you believe if you're a TB12 guy or not, that quote really struck home with me about, that's what an inspirational leader is all about, is somebody who makes everybody else want to rise up to that level and be the best that they possibly can be. So I love that analogy, and I think that's really critical. So thanks for bringing that up. I don't know if I have a closing statement or if I'm still floating right into it.
John, you're doing great. That was part of what I was going to answer to you, but that's okay. The less said from me, the better. Yes, we'd love to hear your closing statement.
So I'll keep going. I would be honored to serve the students and families, the teachers, the staff, the administrators, the school committee of Whitman Hanson. This is an incredible place, and there are amazing things happening, and there's amazing potential. So I hear that in what you're saying, and I hear that piece. I hear you about that really critical piece about being the person who is comforting, supportive, caretaking, loving, and I hope that that's come across, maybe not as well today, but over the times that we've met, that's what John Marcus does. That it's all about finding those ways to bring out the magic and the brilliance in each person, and ensuring that folks feel safe. That there's nothing more important than building trusting relationships, and that's what my mission would be, is to make sure that folks feel safe and that they have trust in their leader to know that he's going to do everything he can in order to support them and make things better for everybody in the district. So that's really a huge thing for me. I've been in education since I was 15. My whole family are educators. My wife is a third grade special educator in our hometown. My daughter, Addie, God love her, is at Leslie studying to be a teacher. So I have taught everything from preschool in Somerville to college kids and administrators hoping to become principals and superintendents someday. And through that all, I think I would bring to you a district-wide pre-K through 12 perspective that I've worked in all facets of the district, from preschool all the way through high school, and I would be happy and excited to share all of those experiences, both at the elementary level and working with amazing 5-year-olds to the incredible help desk kids that I work with day in and day out, to teachers and administrators who I work with every day. I've opened buildings. I know what that's all about. And I've closed buildings. I've been in a district where we had to close one of our elementary schools, and I know what that does. And I've been the recipient of being the person in charge of opening a building and what that means and how difficult that is, both logistically and emotionally for everybody, how coming together in a new community is so important. And when I hear Kevin say something about comfort and support, that's going to be a huge part, I think, of where you're at in the coming months, is finding ways to make sure that folks feel like they are part of this new community that they suddenly arrived in. So that's something that I hope and I'm excited to bring to the community. When I started at Cottage and everything was new, it was a new building, we had 100 new kids coming, the kindergarten showed up, we had new SPED programs, that we called that a new beginning. That was sort of the theme for the year. And it makes me think about, if I were here, what kind of theme would we have, and how would we describe ourselves in that first year? And I think a lot about the new beginning, and what that is really about is respecting the hard work and the great people who are here, who've put in that time, and honoring and celebrating that, and then finding those new ideas that I might be able to bring. I've developed programs and curriculum, again, K-12, from responsive classroom to balanced literacy, to STEAM courses at our middle school, to, as you know, the one-to-one program across the high school. Budget development has been, for me, all about outreach and finding creative solutions through grants and things like that, and being that pitch man. So I truly believe that I've found a home. So to your point, I really believe that this is a place where I can add tremendous amounts of ideas and support and energy to a place that I can celebrate the great things, honor traditions, and grow the teams that are already here, and bring new ideas, make connections, build new teams with colleagues, and hope that I can give everything I possibly can to this place that clearly people are enamored with and love, and build up that pride. When Bob came into to Sharon the other day wearing his Panther Pride outfit, I loved it, because that's what I'm all about. And so it was one of those moments where it was like, yep, that's the kind of thing that I see myself being, that cheerleader and that supporter, and the person who is really taking care of the community and building it up to be the best that it possibly can be, again, to help Whitman Hanson thrive and grow over the next 10 years. So, thank you.
John, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was pleasant to have you come here and to answer all the questions. And as you know how this next phase is going to be, we move to the next interview and the next interview, and then we will be discussing how we're going to do this, and we will be picking a top candidate this evening.
Wow, okay.
If you are not here, we will notify you. Michelle will notify you first thing in the morning.
Okay.
But again, thank you so much for coming. And
I'll call you too.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that to you.
I appreciate it, because I won't sleep.
Michelle is the real superintendent.
Yeah.
She has been incredible, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a couple-minute break before I get to the next candidate, if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah. Stretch.
You tell everybody we got these tonight, and they still come.
Oh, man.
My water with whiskey.
It's hard to suck down.
Thank you.
Okay, then.
It's good for me because
Oh, that's,
Thank you. It's good to see you again.
hi, how you doing?
She's too proficient.
Mr. Boyce, nice to see you again.
I've done, not in the meeting.
Have you met Steve?
Yes, good to see you. Yes, we're talking about, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Rob O'Brien. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. My wife got the milk out of the milk thing. Well, I go in there like 3, 4 in the afternoon, and it's still sitting there.
Okay,
Never gets it.
our next candidate is Kevin McNamara, also known, AKA Kevin Mack, by everyone in the school that we
Mr.
spoke
Mack.
with on that interview. Mr. Mack, Kevin Mack, from the students to the
Parents.
teachers, faculty, so welcome. And if we could go around the table and just introduce ourselves, please.
Michael Jones, School Committee, Hanson.
Bob Trotter, School Committee, Whitman.
Kevin Lynham, School Committee, Whitman.
Bob Hayes, School Committee, Hanson.
Steve Boyce, School Committee, Whitman.
Fred Small, School Committee, Whitman.
Dan Cullity, School Committee, Whitman.
Rob O'Brien, School Committee, Hanson.
Christine Suko, Executive Business Director.
Chad Peters, Director of Technology.
Michelle Lindberg, Superintendent Secretary and School Committee Secretary.
And right on.
Exactly. Kevin McNamara, welcome. We're glad to have you here. We're going to do the interviews very similar to what we did in the last time. We're going to give you a couple of minutes to open. We have 7 questions for you. There may be a couple of follow-up. Time allows, you can ask us a question or two, then you can give us your closing.
Thank you.
So again, welcome to Whitman Hanson.
Thank you, and it's my honor and pleasure to be here today. When assembling a team to get together to meet with the representatives from the school committee yesterday, I really, thought of all the different folks that have made a difference in the community at Lincoln High School, and that could give a representation of me as a leader, not only in my school, but throughout the district. And I hope that they gave you a sense of my energy and my passion for students and learning, I don't want to say development, but I want to say enhancement of teacher leadership and a culture that I was happy to be a part of leading, and also my commitment not only, again, to my school, but also to the district and the things that we've been able to do together, not the least of which was bringing our school community to a successful bond vote in November for $60 million renovation of Lincoln High School. In my packet, there's just a little bit about myself as a leader and some of the messages that I think are really important for students. A lot of it speaks to getting kids that struggle over the hump. As a principal, there's no prouder moment for me than shaking a student's hands as they cross the bridge at graduation at CCRI when I know that a student has struggled to get there. For some kids, graduation is expected. For others, it's a struggle to get there. And there's no prouder moment and a culmination, really, of a PK through 12 effort to get kids to graduation than at that moment. So you'll see some of my deeply held beliefs, some of my experience as an English teacher, always having some kids who struggled with reading and literacy, as an athletic director, as an assistant principal, and some of my beliefs that I held and hold as principal. Again, some of my district level experience, some of my, what I like to say, professional downtime, because really there's no such thing as downtime anymore, but what do I spend my time in outside of Lincoln High School, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, as a member on the Committee on Public Schools, and as a chair, and as the chairman of the Rhode Island Interscholastic League since 2013. Really committed to member-based organizations and doing the best for member schools in both. And always, as a closing in my introduction, I would say that I'm diligent, reflective of the mission, and really want to put students at the forefront of all of our decision-making. So again, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Kevin, thank you. Mr. O'Brien, first question.
What is your vision for the structure of positions at the central office, and what type of candidate would you seek to hire as an assistant superintendent?
I think coming in, I would certainly want to meet with the central office staff that's existing and speak about our different strengths and what our experiences are. And I would seek to round out the team. I think a good teammate is critical. I think someone that complements not only my strengths, but the strengths of the existing team would be really important. Someone with vision, someone with passion, someone with energy. I think someone who's comfortable in a team setting. I think people have to be willing to tell each other hard truths. Sometimes, there are competing interests. There is only a certain amount of money in the pie, and we have to be able to work together on a common vision. I would also really seek to involve the principals and the building administrators in what they would look for in a central office administrator to support them in their roles, because I really view us as supports, just as I view a principal as supporting teachers in the classroom, because the classroom interaction between the student and the teacher is really the most key interaction in all of a district. So we would want somebody that's, again, going to put students first and work hard every day to give teachers the resources that they need to be successful.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
Oh, sorry. what is the staff's role? What do you perceive to be the staff's role in curriculum development? We do have curriculum coordinators, but what do you think is the staff's role in curriculum development, and how would you initiate curriculum change if there needed to be one?
I think one of the first things that I would do is really to look at where we're at curriculum-wise across, pre-K through 12. You want to get a good example of how we're aligned horizontally and vertically, and I see through the plan, the 2016 to 2019 plan, that's part of where you're at. I think there are vehicles like Rubicon Atlas that can do curriculum mapping, that can see where we're at, because we don't want to have, overlapping topics that we do. The famous example is we do the Pilgrims in grade 3, we do the Pilgrims in grade 5, we do them again in grade 8. You want to be clear about when you cover things and when and to what extent. So I think that the staff is really important, and you'd want to have some kind of a structure where they would really map that out and see what's important, mapping it against the Massachusetts state frameworks as the guide for that. But I think critical to the curriculum is also the assessments that are part of that. Elizabeth City, in working at Harvard University, is showing that as tasks develop throughout the grades, the standards are here. In an elementary school, the assessments are here. But as they go forward, the standards are increasing in rigor. But by the time we get to high school and middle school, the assessments of those standards are not there. So we'd really want to take a look again at our assessments, and again, common assessments, something in your plan, something I'm deeply familiar with from my work at Lincoln High School, of developing common tasks and the calibration that goes with that. That's really valuable to curriculum. So I think that starting with, what are we assessing? What do we want kids to know at the end of each grade? Starting with that as a framework to see where are we overlapping, where do we have gaps? That's where we really start with the curriculum work, and always tying it to our assessments to ensure that we're really measuring to the level that we should.
Thank you.
Bob, was that a two-part? Did you have a little bit more to that? Or?
Yeah, I did. I guess maybe I didn't read it well enough. What I'm looking for is what would be the staff's role in curriculum development? In other words, if you had to make a change, what would the staff's role be? The coordinators, the teachers, and...
I would say that a structure where staff is involved on a curriculum committee, that they would be the ones writing it, and that administrators would have a part in reviewing that. But really, the curriculum needs to be done, by the work of the teachers, because that's where, they're going to teach it. They're responsible for it. It's the administrator's role to ensure there's fidelity to that curriculum. But I think that work has to be done, at the teacher level, with a representation across grades, certainly special education, having input into making sure that they're at the table. They should have a seat on every curriculum committee that comes down the pike. Bringing in specialists as well, art, music, library as appropriate, especially at the high school level, to ensure that the library media person is bringing in resources as needed. And just as a background and a framework for that work, I would really say that K-12, we would take a look at NEAS Standard 2 curriculum and model all of our work on the essential things that are listed, particularly in Standard 2.2, which kind of lists what are the elements of curriculum. But it's really the teacher's work to develop it, with administrative role to support that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin?
Okay, so this one's long. So it's a list. So I'm going to read it, and then I'll just break it down and make it more digestible, okay? So here are several district goals that, because of budget limitations, have not become a reality. Tuition-free full-day kindergarten for all students in the district, foreign language instruction for students in grades 6 and up, the hiring of social workers at the elementary level, the hiring of permanent library media specialists at the elementary level. Which of these goals seems like it should go at the top of the list? So what I'm doing is I'm listing sort of budget priorities that have cost too much for us to get them into the budget. And, if you ask the committee, they say, just get it all. But, the superintendent needs to talk us off the ledge a little bit and prioritize. So, so I'm just giving you 4 of our top priorities I think it's 4, whatever it is.
Yeah, I was just
I'll
gonna
break it
ask.
down again. So it's all day K.
Yes.
Foreign language in the middle schools, social workers for elementary, and library media at elementary. So assuming none of that is in place, which of those would you put at the top if you're going to implement those as
Sure.
missing programs in
Sure.
our district?
I think that full day K would definitely be at the top of my list for priorities. My reason why is I think it gives the most bang for the buck. We want to intervene early. We want to make sure that we're catching kids early, that no deficits are going to develop before we can intervene. I've been very blessed to work for a superintendent since 2008 that was a former special educator. And her mission, even though she spent most of her time at the high school, her mission was really to make sure that kids coming out of elementary school were on grade level. And full day K was something that we did in Lincoln. Actually, it followed the closing of an elementary school. We were able to repurpose some staff. We were able to repurpose some programs to make that a zero cost to the taxpayers. So I know, in watching your last meeting, Superintendent Whitner said that this has been on the agenda since 2000. It certainly is a worthy goal to have at the top of your list. And again, I think they're all wonderful priorities, but I think that the full day K really serves the most. Frankly, it's also, I don't want to cheapen it by saying it's a marketing tool, but full day K is very attractive to parents. As we look at competing options, as we're always looking towards charter schools, we're looking towards other options. We want to keep kids here. Much like Lincoln, when they leave for the first time, they are unlikely to come back. When they don't come in the door, whether it's pre-K or K, they are unlikely to come back. So we want to capture as many kids as we can in the system from really the first time that we can, and have the quality programs in place to ensure that they don't leave. So for many reasons, not only student achievement, but also the long-term health and financial stability and enrollment stability of the district, we want to make sure that parents are entering their children as early in our schools as they can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Hey, Kevin. In receiving complaints that our schools are not being cleaned properly, how do you see yourself enforcing the SJ Services cleaning contract to ensure we are getting our money's worth and are applying fines for not performing to the contract?
This is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. My head custodian just passed away. He was a really good man, and he knew where to find me on a Saturday morning about 5 years ago. I'm working out down in the weight room, and he comes down and he says to me, "Kev, I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to bid into your school." He goes, "I know you're not that bad. I've always gotten along with you. The guys think you're tough, but I like you." So I said, "Thank you, Fred." Cleaning buildings, the environment that kids come into, is of paramount importance. It's of paramount importance to the staff. It's of paramount importance to parents when they come in. I'm going to hold a company that signs a contract to a really high level of accountability when it comes to that. Frankly, it's going to be my inspections that will monitor that. I have high standards when it comes to that. I think the folks that were at my school saw a clean environment, not as beautiful certainly as this environment, but it's maintained very well. I take great pride. I've always told my custodians, I take great pride in the fact that people come in from other buildings and they say, wow, this school is really well maintained. Visiting teams, visiting parents, it's clean. May not be shiny and new, but it's clean. So I think it's going to be my personal commitment to you that I'm going to go around and I'm going to inspect and I'm going to hold companies accountable. And working with the business administrator with the contract, I'm sure we'll be able to get the desired results.
Thank you.
Okay. How would you conduct a campaign for an annual general budget vote and describe your experiences with budget cuts, reallocation of funds, or monitoring a budget.
Sure. Over the past few years, Rhode Island has approached the fiscal cliff, which we now have. We've had some stabilization money that has come in, but we are very much approaching the fiscal cliff this year. So the school committee is in the midst of presenting their budget. It's gone to the town administrator, and our structure is it goes to a budget board. So my role, frankly, since 2008, has been to support the superintendent in any documents that the budget board has requested. So we've had to justify programs, we've had to justify positions, we've had to provide enrollments, we've had to provide class numbers, all in support of a budget defense. And I think that transparency, I think that early communication is key. I think that providing as much information as we can to the community is very important. But I think that sticking to goals is important too. And I think that communities get, schools lose credibility when priorities change from year to year. And something that we told you was important this year is no longer in our priority. So we're changing and we're kind of moving, we're moving the deck. Or we said this was our top priority this year and now it's 3 or 4 items down the list. I think we have to be consistent. And again, that comes from long-term planning. That comes from the input of the stakeholders, the advice of the principals, the work of the central office staff, to have a clear vision to communicate to the community about what we think is important. So my role in advocating in reducing, and fighting to not reduce programs has been to know what I'm talking about and to really have a clear vision of what would cost a program and what would not. When I talked to the Lincoln School Committee about a month ago, I said, losing staff in X number of areas is going to mean a program cut. And I know that because I know the numbers and I've done my homework and I have the backup to support that. So you can't go in with feelings and a gut and things like that. You have to do your homework and really know what you're talking about to gain credibility.
Fred, was there a part 2 to that?
Yes. Can you describe your personal experience with any budget cuts, reallocation of funds, or monitoring, the live document, the budget?
Sure. So my budget's about $9 million. So I'm responsible for that, as well as the department chairs to, when we get a number, we have to set our priorities. And really it comes back to what do you do when you get that budget cut? How do you set that priority? So again, from my experience, we go back to the teachers, we go back to the department chairs, we go back to the folks that are going to have to make do with that and really get their direction on where we're going to make those cuts. So it really goes back to that kind of site-based leadership where we'll make the number work. I've had to reduce staff in certain departments over time. We have decreasing enrollment. So we've had to take a look at where we could make those cuts. We've reduced in areas that, as much as possible, not to affect student programs. So when there were opportunities for staff reductions, whether it was a retirement that we weren't going to fill, whether it was repurposing a job, moving a program, all that stuff I'm very, very familiar with and have done similar things. For example, we have a 1.4 librarian because we have 0.4 of our librarian is virtual high school. That's where we've housed it. It's very hard to find a 0.4 librarian. So, we have some play, in some other areas. So in order to keep this person whole, which is in a hard to find area, we don't want to be trying to find a part-time music teacher when he's particularly excellent. We want to keep him whole. We're going to move that 0.4 over there. So we have the savings of the 0.4 coming off the books, and we're able to keep an exemplary educator whole. So I think that creative solutions like that is nothing new, for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
Okay, Kevin. How would you go about establishing good public relations between the superintendent's office, the staff, and the politicians in both Whitman and Hanson? And what communication methods would you use between the district and the communities?
I think first and foremost, it comes down to personal FaceTime and personal relationships. If you can't sit across from someone again and have an honest, frank conversation, we're not going to get anywhere. So I think that goes from whether I'm talking about the town administrator to whether I'm talking about the custodian. If they don't know me as a person and they don't know what my expectations are as a leader, we're not going to get anywhere. So it really comes down to investing the personal one-on-one time with all the folks in the district that make that community. And again, I'm not talking just about parents, I'm talking about people that pay the taxes that have nothing to do with the schools. You know, getting out there, knowing that their dollars are invested wisely is really important to me. So I think there are lots of vehicles that we use in schools to get our message out to parents and folks that are connected to the schools, whether it's listservs, whether it's blog posts, whether it's using, I think social media has a really powerful effect, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, particularly when we want to talk about reaching younger folks, we want to be where they're at. Sometimes as adults, we're one iteration of that social media revolution behind. So I think we want to be dynamic in where we're at in the social media platforms and not let one get away from us and kind of get to it late. So I think that all of those things, whether they're building-based, whether they're district-based, are ways to get our message out there and having a consistent message about the schools, about communication, about the value of our programs, and always having that in mind is we want to sell the value of our programs to our constituents. We want to be, you know, the schools are great. That's the mantra that we want to have. And if we don't have really good programs to back that up, that's going to ring hollow. So we want to have really good programs that we can market and that we can get out there to folks and that we can promote on social media and you know, have that communication so that people know what's going on in the schools and they feel confident about the programs that we're putting into place.
Dan, was there a second part of that question also, or did you incorporate it?
Incorporated it.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying not to miss anyone here.
Thank you.
And Steve?
Yes. Kevin, describe your vision for our schools.
Again, I think it comes down to, do we have really high-quality programs that meet the needs of all types of learners? I think that's what we really want to have. And again, my vision of the schools is kind of secondary to what our community vision of the schools is. You know, NEASC is moving towards a vision of a graduate. What is a community's vision of a graduate? And using a process to get there. And frankly, that's not a high school conversation. That's a community conversation about what is the community value? What does the community want for its students? So from PK through 12, what do we think is important? So when I think about that, I think about kids having opportunities to have high-quality learning, to have rigorous learning experiences that prepares them for college or careers. And I think that's really important that, you know, not everybody goes to college, but everybody goes to work. And do you have programs that support kids that may not be ready for college right away, but may expose them to careers? It may be a college and then a career. It may be to some type of career training right out of school. I have high-quality programs that meet kids' needs. I want to have special education programming that keep kids in district, that keep kids in their home schools as much as possible, that keep them as part of the community, that give them the ability to be successful in the world. You know, the folks that were there yesterday, they saw the transition program. They saw the 18 to 21-year-old program. The kids weren't there because they were out at work experiencing the best of what the community has to offer to get them ready for their life after school. So again, I think it's a community conversation, but I really look at high-quality programs that meet the needs of the kids. I look at parents feeling involved, parents feeling welcome, as part of their, as partners in their child's education, that really would be my desired state.
Thank you. I've got a couple questions that are tailored specifically to you.
Sure.
From my visit.
Sure.
I talked to your SPED director when we were there, and she gave me a number that I think is incorrect, and I'm just wondering if you could. I asked her what was her budget, and she told me between $33,000 and $50,000. And I said, per student? And she said, no, complete. I was a little confused. I think she might have been too.
Yeah, we have an interim special education director right now, so she was not part of the central office. So the person you saw was my special education department chair.
Okay.
So she may be pulling some numbers in, but her actual supply budget is smaller than that. Her supply budget is probably about $6,000 to $8,000. I don't know where she's getting 33 to 50.
I was thinking she was light by $500,000 or more.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the district special education number, but I know that, you know, we have many different programs. We have a very excellent severe and profound program that has OT and PT built into the day. We have an emotionally, I hate the label of emotionally disturbed. I think ED is just a terrible label, but we call it the Connections program. We have a Connections program, we have our 18 to 21-year-old program, we have a substantially separate program that's co-taught. We have two different models of co-taught. We have folks that come into a special education classroom, and then we have special education teachers that co-teach in a regular education environment. So we have lots of varying levels of support to make sure that kids get what they need.
Thank you. And the other question I had, if you were chosen to be the superintendent at Whitman Hanson, our programs and meetings a lot of times take place and run into the late night hours. How would you handle that?
I'm used to it. I'm used to it. Being a high school principal is a 24/7 job, very similar to the superintendent. Long hours, late nights are not unknown to me, and I'm ready for that. It's part of the job. You have to be available for the community. The community is not here during the day. If I said I'm going to work from 8 to 3 or 8 to 4, and then that's good enough. That's not when the parents are here. That's not when the kids are here. That's not when I'm going to get to see people. I've never been someone who has watched a clock or been, somebody that just thinks that they can do all this stuff from their office. You have to be out where the people are. Very early on in my career, I received wonderful advice from a superintendent in a different district who actually made the Rhode Island to Mass jump himself. And he had a system. And he said, you have to find a system that works for you. He goes, my system as a superintendent was Saturday morning. I would go in Saturday morning, I would do what I needed to do paperwork-wise, because during the week, the kids and the teachers are only there for a certain amount of time. My time has always been Sunday afternoon. That's been my quiet time in my office from athletic director on, that I've gotten the work done that has allowed me to be out in classrooms, to be there at night, to be at games, to go see the kids, to go see the parents, to be present for the community. Being present for the community is one of my top goals. And really, I would say it's going to be one of my strong suits, that people are going to see me and people are going to know me. I was asked, somewhere along the way if I have an open door policy. I said, if I have to have an open door policy for you to tell me something, I'm doing something wrong. Because if you can't have a quick conversation with me and kind of give me the temperature of what's going on, where it takes you coming to my office, I haven't done my job of being there for the community. Always we're going to have conversations that people need to have behind closed doors when it affects their child and when it's a more serious thing. But if it takes that open door policy for people to give me feedback about what's going on in the district, I won't be doing my job.
Thank you. Anyone have any follow-ups?
Yeah, I do.
Bob?
Being a former teacher and administrator myself, I guess my concern would be that the systems had the same superintendent for about 10 to 12 years. So if someone new is coming in, how would you transition so the staff and everyone else, teachers, custodial, the whole works, administrative team, principals, how would you go about meeting them, greeting them, or making them feel comfortable that things will be okay?
Again, I've received some great advice from my current superintendent. When you want to go fast, go slow. I think the worst thing you can do as a newcomer is come in and make big sweeping changes. We've all had in education, unfortunately, people that have come in with their program, their model, made big changes, not listened, not valued, and then 18 months later, we've got an add-on school spring again. I think it really comes down to listening, meeting people where they're at, learning the history, learning the culture, being respectful of that, not being afraid to ask questions about why decisions were made or why things are in place or why things kind of are the way they are. But I think being respectful is very important. I think meeting people where they're at is very important. I think getting out to see people in their environment is very important. Meeting parents at the schools, meeting administrators, talking to them about what they view as important, what they view as challenges, what they view as strengths of their school, asking them what they need from me in order to feel supported, both personally and professionally, is incredibly important. It's my job to get out there, frankly, with my boots on the ground and to do some home visits and to knock on doors and to meet some kids and some families on their turf. I found that to be incredibly effective in my role as a principal in meeting kids that are struggling and that we're worried about, particularly from grade 8 to grade 9. So I would, ask the principals to go and do that with me, to get to know not necessarily struggling kids, but kids that, so I can get out there in the community. But I think, the plan that I put together, I said, listen, learn, and lead. And I really mean that in order. Because if I don't listen and learn, I'm not going to be able to lead. And I don't mean to be trite about that. You really have to get in and listen to people and know what's going on before you make any decisions.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for us?
I would just ask you to kind of prioritize what you would think as being the most important things that you want to get to with the new superintendent.
Mr. O'Brien, you're under the gun.
We'll start with me. Community relations, I think, is one of the big ones. Working with the department heads in both towns, working with the selectmen in both towns, understanding the wants and needs of both towns, because both towns are very different. So a little bit of a PR person at the same time with that.
Dan?
I'm along the lines of what Robbie said, but another good one would be how would you implement the pre-K, fully funded pre-K here, seeing that's a big budget challenge here.
Fred?
We know it's coming. GOAT, the greatest of all time. Someone that can inspire all those that are around them, inspire them to be better, inspire our students to do better, and lift everyone up to another level, and always want to get to the next level of the ladder, never being satisfied.
Mr. Boyce?
Students doing the absolute best that they can. I volunteered in our schools, and I was remarked by some of the achievements the kids can do, and it's just putting it to them and giving them that opportunity. They do a great job, but they got to continue to do that.
Kevin?
That was a lot of qualities. I think we pretty much
You
covered.
guys didn't know you were going to school tonight,
Is there anything
huh?
left after all that? So, I guess, being mindful that this is a transitional period, you know, that there's been a lot of stability in the district, and now suddenly there's a lot of change at once. So being mindful of that and inspiring the people working there with confidence that we're going in the right direction.
Mr. T?
Going to my background, I guess it's important to me that you have someone who can relate to staff, administrators, principals, everyone, cafeteria, custodial, the whole works, and be able to communicate to them that, you know, that they are important. It's the building blocks of any school would be the staff. So I think someone who can relate to them.
Mr. Jones?
Tough going last after all that. I'd like to agree with Robbie. I mean, just being known in our community is huge, but I'm going to go with longevity. Don't want someone that just is going to be here for a year. I hope someone that's going to fight in and stay.
And I'm going to go last. I think that I'm looking for a leader that talks about, very similar to what Mike talks about. We've had some consistent leadership here. We've had 2 superintendents. I've been on this committee for 15 years. And in my 15 years, we've had 2 superintendents. And before that, there wasn't a huge revolving door, but there were other superintendents. And I think I'm looking for someone who can do what you've said you were going to do. Get out, lead, make people confident. If someone's confident in the leader, they'll follow them anywhere. And I'm looking for someone that really can do that. I'm not saying we haven't had that. And I'm not looking for somebody that's jumping ship. I'm looking for somebody who's coming, can sell Whitman Hanson, bleeds red and black, believes it, sleeps it, eats it, drinks it. I know it's a big job. But a lot of the people in this district do that right now. And they're looking for that, I think, too. So that's what I'm looking for. We have good quality employees here, proud of them, and I want to see that continue on.
And I think, I would hope, that when you saw the work that I've done at Lincoln, and you talk to the people, and you talk about the references and the letters, I think I meet all your qualifications. These are high standards. I will work every day to make sure that I'm living up to the qualities that you put out there. Because that's really, this is what I'm all about. High quality, hard work, energy, communication, knowing people's names, knowing kids' names. And you can see from my resume, I'm not a jumper. You know, I want a home. I want roots. I want connections. So with that, I would say thank you for your time. This has been an excellent process for me. You know, I look forward to hoping to work for you in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Matt.
It's been a great experience for us too. Anytime you can go through a process that we have and work with educators and come up with a solution, it's a good day. So thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take a little break again.
Very important, Chair.
Yes.
Are we ordering pizza?
I would like to remind everyone that all the mics are still on, so keep that in mind.
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
Are you still on? I'm still on pizza.
Robbie.
Never stop.
What do you want, mushroom and,
I should.
hamburger and onion or something?
Am I missing something?
Chad.
Banging egg.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our last candidate of the evening is Principal Jeff Simonak. Jeff, how we're going to do this is very similar to how we did the screening committee. Give you a couple minutes to open. We've got some questions to ask you. If time allows, you can ask us some questions. I'm sure you know everyone, but for those watching, if we could just introduce ourselves. Mr. Simonak is our current principal, and he is our third interviewee tonight. We'll start with Kyle.
Assistant Superintendent, Student Services.
Michael Jones, School Committee Hanson.
Bob Trotter, School Committee Whitman.
Kevin Lineham, School Committee Whitman.
Bob Hayes, School Committee Hanson.
Steve Boyd, School Committee Whitman.
Fred Small, School Committee Whitman.
Dan Cullity, School Committee Whitman.
Rob O'Brien, School Committee Hanson.
Christine Suko, Executive Business Director.
Chad Peters, Director of Technology.
Nice to see you all. Interesting chair to be
Jeff, thank you for coming. I know it's been, we've been a little tedious with keeping everyone together, and I know you've been here for a couple hours, but we did it out of a hat.
Totally okay. It's given me an opportunity.
So you can give us your opening statement.
First of all, thank you for this opportunity. I feel humbled to be sitting here as a finalist for the school system. This process, although it's been a couple of months, it seemed, has given me an opportunity to really reflect on what we've done at Whitman Hanson Regional High School and our accomplishments, and it's made me very proud. We've actually reduced our dropout rate in my tenure. We've added AP courses. We've added co-teaching for our struggling students in all our core areas. We've added a transition room for our students who have had issues outside of school and have extended absences. We've changed culture and climate, I think, for the better, and respect is a word that's seen and heard in our hallways. This past month, I've had an opportunity to talk with quite a few students, my colleagues and teachers, and their advice to me was be yourself tonight. So I'll just share with you, while I was sitting back there, I watched the Rocky III training montage. So I'm pretty fired up, and I'm ready for your questions. I hope in the next hour you'll see who I am, what I believe in, and my vision for this incredible district, and the opportunity to be the leader of a bunch of wonderful people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien.
All right. What is your vision for the structure of positions at the central office, and what type of candidate would you seek to hire as an assistant superintendent?
As you know, we've had quite an influx of people in central office. One of the things that I'd like to do is solidify what the assistant superintendent role is, what the current assistant superintendent of student services role is, and make sure that people within the district are comfortable with that. I see an opportunity to hire somebody who is opposite my skill set as the assistant superintendent, but also a team player and is multi-talented and can reach across all the stakeholders in both towns. A person has to be a communicator, the person has to be an ally, and a confidant of myself as a superintendent. So looking at our structure, I think I'm looking for a person that can really work well with me, work well with the teachers in the district, and share the same vision that I have. And I think that person would have that vision that we can do very good things here in our district.
Thank you.
Is there a second part to that, Rob?
Let's see. Structure of positions in the central office. Anything that you would change as far as the structures or anything?
I think that's a determination based upon the current office structure. I don't think I'm necessarily adding positions. I think we evaluate our curriculum director positions to see if it's efficient and effective. I think those are continual conversations with the people in central office and then with the stakeholders who are the building level principals and directors and seeing what works. I'm not adverse to making change. I'm not adverse to making difficult decisions, especially in difficult budget times. But I also want to see what the qualities the people have currently and how they work best for me and work best for the students and staff in the district.
Thank you.
Bob Trotter?
Yep. My question centers around curriculum, and it's basically two parts, so I'll read it, and if you need me to read it, I'll do that for you. What is your perception of the staff's role in curriculum development? I know we have curriculum coordinators, so what is the staff's role in curriculum development, and how would you initiate curriculum change if need be? In other words, the whole
Sure. So in the process of looking at what we have, I think there's a definite need for some improvement in curriculum development in the elementary level. I think we're pretty solid as far as at the secondary 6 through 12 level, but through investigation and through some conversation, I think teachers need more buy-in in what we're doing with literacy and with numeracy and mathematics. I know we're looking at product as far as what would be best for our students right now. I think teachers have to take an active role in developing the curriculum. They're the masters of what they're doing in their classroom. I think our curriculum directors are supplemental and are based upon core subjects. So I think the people that we have in place can add to that, but I think teachers and the principals at the elementary level really need to have a vested buy-in in what we're doing for curriculum. Can you repeat that second part of the question?
How would you initiate curriculum change, or?
I think, again, we look at what we have, and then through our conversations. And the conversations that I've had with Beth, Karen, and Julie, there needs to be a common structure, an agreement in what we're doing. When I first came into this position, our curriculum directors were 9 through 12, and there was no vertical articulation 6 through 12, and that was an immediate need that we had to really fix, and we did that. I think right now we have a methodology of K to 12 articulation. I think we need to get the curriculum directors in a spot that they can be successful and that teachers can understand their role. And that's a communication between the building level principals and the curriculum directors. And I think the absence of an assistant superintendent of curriculum or whatever an assistant superintendent to put that together has been something of a detriment to us, especially in the past 2 years.
Thank you.
Mr. Lynham.
Okay. I have the annoying question, so it's long. It's a list question. I'll just read it, and then I'll recap it, make it more, digestible. So here are several district goals that, because of budget limitations, have not become a reality. Tuition-free full-day kindergarten for all students in the district, foreign language instruction for students in grades 6 and up, the hiring of social workers at the elementary level, the hiring of permanent library media specialists at the elementary level. Which of these goals seems like it should be the top priority? So this is sort of a recap of the last few years of budget and what ended up on the cutting room floor, basically. And knowing that, you're not going to get it all at once, most likely, as you prioritize with budget, which do you put at the top of the list? So it's all day K, languages in middle school, social workers at elementary, and library media at elementary. Those 4 things.
Good list. Actually, part of my vision list for a 5-year plan. I think prioritizing is a challenging question, but something, as a superintendent, you have to make your priorities. Right now, given the state of where we're at, I think elementary social workers and help is huge. Social emotional learning right now is elevated to a point that we're at a critical stage. You see what happened in Florida yesterday. I mean, you have a person who has some issues and was expelled or moved from the school. I think if we start with identifying kids who have needs, social emotional needs, and putting support systems in place can only benefit. What I see here and what I've done, and I'll just say a little bit, at the high school we've really focused in on social emotional. I've had the opportunity to make decisions. I actually lost an assistant principal 6-7 years ago. When I was able to get funding back, I put it into adjustment counselors so that we don't have the outcome, we can be preventative. So when a student starts to have issues, they see a counselor instead of becoming a disciplinary problem, which is a cycle in of itself. So my priority right now, very difficult question, but I would focus in on the elementary help for some of those struggling students. I've sat with the 3 elementary principals and listened to what's going on in the elementaries, and it's challenging. A teacher in a classroom, because of our class size, of above 20, 22, 23, with a student that's not having a good time or having issues at home, either because of a number of things, domestic violence, poverty, difficulty learning. I think any type of support system that will help them, will help the teacher and the students around them become better and be better learners. The other ones in itself, and I can just say, I love the idea of full day K. I think if we establish full day K in this district, we would reduce our charter school students. Right now we have 40+ charter school students at South Shore Charter School. they've never set foot in this district. They've gone from kindergarten on. I don't know if we offered that full day K, if parents would give us an opportunity to educate their kids. I think that's a priority. I think foreign language, as a high school administrator, watching students only get 2 to 3 years of foreign language at the high school level is challenging. I would do a incremental movement at the middle school to see that we would establish a full middle school program, as well as adding an additional language at the high school. So it wouldn't just be a 6 through 8 increment of foreign language. It would be a 6 through 12, adding Mandarin or adding Arabic, one of the world languages which our students need to have. So that's another priority. I also don't want to diminish the fact that we need libraries, but I also think we rethink how we do libraries. Libraries aren't as much as books anymore as far as media and understanding the world we live in and teaching students how to utilize their resources and get more knowledge. So again, not my priority list, but I look at student first. I'm a pretty student-centered guy, and I look at immediate problem, and I see the majority of our students, or a good amount of students, I requalify, it's not a majority of our kids, but a lot of our kids have some issues, and we need some help. And the assistant principal and the school psych school psychs in the elementary are testing for special education. They're not counseling. Our elementary principals are running ragged, and then I look at Bill and George at the middle level. They don't have as many supports as I have at the high school. So I see where we have there, and my priority, quite honestly, would be looking down there and making sure that students in the classroom feel safe, comfortable, and supported by either a social worker, an adjustment counselor, or somebody that can add that extra help for them to be successful in the classroom.
Thanks. Jeff, in receiving complaints that in receiving complaints that our schools are not being cleaned properly, how do you see yourself enforcing the SJ service cleaning contract to ensure that we are getting our money's worth and are applying fines for not performing to the contract?
So, good question. I've sat at the table with David Shea, and we've had, disagreements, and I've emailed him, and I've actually called him about issues here at the high school. He's been very receptive, and I think we have a contract, and it's a contract to look at. One of the things that I think is a knock on and I will say SJ's gotten much better, at least here and across the district, in responding to issues of complaints. But I think we're looking at big picture sometimes instead of looking at some of the little things. So when they miss a spot here or miss a spot there, they should be held accountable for that. And there's a conversation with Ernie and with the people that SJ puts in place to make sure those things are fixed and are done. And if they're not, then we go back to the contract and see what's appropriate there. I don't have any issue with issuing the fine, just like we used to do with First Student when they didn't have Whitman Hanson on the side. They're supposed to, and I'm out in front making sure that they did. It's not punitive. It's the right thing to do, and we're paying good money for a service. I expect that service to be done. That being said, it's a conversation to have with the people that are in charge of that and through their chain of command. But again, I've had conversations with David Shea myself, and he's assured me this is done, and we walked the building a few times when we had the issues early on. Going forward, I think they could be a little bit more visible, and they could tidy up a few things that I think, again, big picture, they're doing a decent job, but they're missing some of the little things, and I think we hold them we hold them accountable for that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Small.
Two-part question. How would you conduct a campaign for an annual general budget vote and describe your experiences with budget cuts, reallocation of funds, or monitoring a budget?
So a campaign for a budget.
For our annual budget.
I have no problem getting out in the community and talking to people. I think that's the job of the superintendent. I've learned from I've worked for a few different superintendents, all had very different styles. And one of the superintendents that got things done when budgets were really tough was a superintendent who was talking to the public, who was holding a sign on voting day and shaking some hands. I know going out in the public's a risk sometimes because you're going to hear negative things and you're going to get blasted once in a while. I'm okay with that. I'm a high school principal. I get blasted a lot. I'm okay. I think that's a priority for the superintendent to market and talk about the district and advocate for the district, even when the public isn't happy with you. You still keep the focus on kids and being able to tell people why you need things. Transparency, and I love the word transparency. I think it's a word that's out there. I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to tell you hard facts. People could disagree. We can agree to disagree. But when we put pen to paper and show what's out there, we've got to get the community involved. And bringing people in and having those difficult conversations is not something that I'm afraid to do. I think it's about shaking hands sometimes. It's about meeting the constituents, the voters, the taxpayers, not just the parents of the school children. It's getting out there to the senior centers, to the libraries, and just having a cup of coffee. Going to Mo's place, or going over to Dunkin' Donuts in Whitman and hanging out once in a while, and just saying, I'm the superintendent of schools in Whitman, we need your vote, we need some help. That's not a problem for me. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, it's not great, but it's something you have to do for the job. And if you're in it for the kids, and you're in it for your teachers, and you're in it for the best possible education for the students here so they can be successful, sometimes you got to do difficult things, and sometimes you have to feel uncomfortable. I can do that. I'm not uncomfortable doing that. Second part of your question, as far as budget cuts, I came here in 2010 and had to riff people right away. So having those difficult conversations is not something that I look forward to. In the future, I'd love to never be able to do that again, but reality is things happen. So having to reallocate funds, having to move people around, as I mentioned before, I cut an assistant principal, and over time I was able to get funding back and reallocated it to something else. I've moved people around within this building because of reallocation. Where's the critical need based upon the funds that you have, and nothing is improving? So where's your need? Math, science, social studies, wherever. So my experience in that is just that. Wherever the need is, looking at the building level principles from the superintendent role, what is your critical need? This is the amount of staff, this is the amount of funding that we have. Reallocate and have those difficult conversations sometimes. Principals hold close to the chest. We value our schools, we value our buildings, we value our people. But sometimes we have to let that go a little bit and have trust in each other that we're doing the best job for the kids in our buildings. And sometimes those are difficult decisions, sometimes those are difficult conversations and arguments. But those are arguments that are worthwhile, especially when you're in a tight budget. Thank you.
Dan?
Most of these were answered, but I'm going to go with it anyways. How would you go about establishing good public relationships between the superintendent's office, the staff, and the politicians in both Whitman and Hanson? And what communication methods would you use between the district and the communities?
So I think now, being the high school principal, I've established some relationships with our local politicians, not everyone, but quite a few. And as a superintendent, it's imperative. It's imperative to sit down and have a cup of coffee once in a while, go over to their office and talk and see where they're at. Same thing with police and fire. When we bring them in for security, I have no issues going over to either the chief's police or fire and having a conversation and saying, hey, look, I didn't like what happened during this drill. I think this was good, this was bad. I need your help. I have some difficulty. As a superintendent, I think that's critical to get out there and talk to both sets of towns. Sometimes together, sometimes separately. I think sometimes you negotiate the critical needs of the town versus the school. It's one pot of money. We all have to understand that it's not growing, so we all have to discuss priorities. And sometimes we have to make accommodations for each other. Instead of fighting, we have to have those discussions. I can do that. Communication-wise, I like to get out and talk, but one of my sources of communication right now is some social media. I use social media today to inform my parents about what happened in Florida and how I address the kids. It was quicker than email. I sent out an email and I got more responses from Facebook than I did from email. I think it's a good methodology. I don't like to respond to social media necessarily, but I like to use it as a tool so that when things go out, parents can see. Had an issue the other day just at the high school. I had an issue around a scholarship, and a parent had posted something on Facebook, and I responded, call my office, we can solve it. Haven't solved the problem yet, but I know what the problem is, and it didn't buzz around the community saying the school department didn't do anything. So you address that. I'm not afraid to address that either. And I think transparency and getting information out to the public as soon as you can in a quality way is important for all the stakeholders in the district, from the superintendent's office to the principal's office. That's what I've done. I've been relatively successful with that, and that's the methodology that I would use. But I also love going door to door and talking to folks. I think that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff, describe your vision for our schools.
So, Mr. Lynham asked a little bit of a question. What I see in 5 years. I see in 3 years. I could see next year if we got a ton of dough. It would be great. But I see us looking down the crystal ball, having a full-day K program, because all of our other towns are doing it right now. I see that attracting families to both of our communities. As we know, our enrollment's down. Maybe it's because of full-day K. But I see us having a full-day K program. I see us having social workers or support systems in the elementary school. I see us with language. I see us doing all these things, but it's not going to happen unless I can, with my team, convince members of each community that we're worth it, that the value added into these programs is going to be value added to their homes. I think we've seen it here at the high school, and I have a good response from some folks. But the vision just doesn't, I can talk the talk, but I got to walk the talk, and that means some hard work with stakeholders, with local politicians, with the chiefs, with the water department, with library, because we're all playing from the same kettle of dough. I also think we need to establish ourselves in elementary curriculum. That's where we've lacked. So the vision of a well-rounded student, giving each student an opportunity to achieve what they can achieve. Every child that walks in this door should be able to say, this is what I want to do, and that can change over the course of time. I met with 8th grade parents yesterday, and yeah, it was yesterday, or Tuesday, and we talked about the roller coaster ride of high school and opportunities, and people change their majors or change what they want to do. Every child walking into kindergarten or pre-K, if they come here, parents should know that Whitman Hanson is going to provide their child a great classroom experience, a great social experience, a great extracurricular experience, and a great athletic experience. Pick it, and they should be able to maneuver that all the way through. That's my vision. We don't have a lot of money, so how is that going to make it happen? Decisions, 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 but marketing the district, and talking to people, and convincing the taxpayers that it's worth it. I think that's my vision, and I think I can work hard to make that happen.
Thank you.
Anyone have any follow-up questions?
I do.
Mr. T?
I've asked this question to the other two candidates as well. Knowing them, a former teacher and administrator, and we've had one superintendent in the system for quite some time, and you being an in-house candidate, which sometimes makes it, the transition might be a little more difficult. How would your transitioning take place, and how would you respond to meeting with teachers and administrators to make them feel that, things will be okay, I'm not going to come in
and change everything and be
yeah, and I
crazy?
mean, a lot of them know you, but
Yeah.
but they'll be seeing you in a different role.
Sure.
If that's the case.
So if I'm the candidate that gets this position, my job starts as soon as you want me to. That means going out into the public, going out to, and I don't want to step on superintendent's toes. Ruth and I have a great relationship. We're very different than each other, very different than each other. But we have a good relationship. And I would say, look, part of my transition is going out to the elementaries and having coffee hours with teachers, finding out what's going on. When I came here, that's what I did with my staff. They got to get to know who I am. Getting out to parents and saying, this is who I am. It's just not the face on Twitter. This is who I am. Tell me what's going on. Tell me your thoughts. And I start my list. Talking to the building level principals and establishing what we want to do as our vision for next year. That would start right after vacation. Incrementally, because I still have a job to do and I still have to graduate my kids and make sure everything's good here. But that's part of how I would transition, starting day one. The big thing that I see as a major transition right now is we're closing a building. I would ask the superintendent and the transition team to put me in charge of that transition process, from the pre-K to Duval to Indian Head to Whitman Middle. That could be something that then gets me out and about for a specific purpose, and talking to the stakeholders that are there, like that. But that's that piece. I don't mind spending the time. I don't mind having those conversations. And I know people are going to throw things out and say, well, you know, you did this, you did that, whatever. The feedback can be positive, the feedback can be negative. We're going to put it down, we're going to have those discussions. But I would start that transition, learning from the things that Ruth knows, learning from the things that I don't know, and utilizing the central office staff and other folks within the district to get as much information as I can. I know one of the things, just looking at all the documents that I need to read and all the manuals, I've written them all down, like, okay, I know this one, I know this one. I've got a leg up because I know the contract, I know different things here, but some of the other stuff that I just would have an opportunity prior to July 1, I'd come in hard nose on July 1 with all these things in place.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Jeff, now comes the part where you can, maybe get even with the school committee. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions for us? We're starting with Joan.
Well, one of the questions you asked me, Mr. Boyce, you asked me about the vision, and some of the members, I asked that question the same at my interview, but some of the committee members were not present. So I'm going to put them on the spot. So, to the members that weren't in the initial screening, what's your vision for the superintendent, and where would you like the school system to be in 5 years?
Go ahead, Mike.
I was in your school.
Yeah, you were.
I'll answer it again. I guess I would like to see more, this would be probably more to you. I'd like to see you bring the passion you have as a principal, and we see you at sports, we see you everywhere, you know what I mean, out in the community, which I love, just as a principal. I'd like to see you bring that as a superintendent. That's what I think we need.
I think, based on my background, I think the staff are the building blocks of any school system. And I think it's imperative for the superintendent to be able to communicate with the staff. Everyone, by staff, I mean everyone who's employed by the school department, to make sure that there's that communication and there's a give and take there.
I'd like to see our focus be on having individual talent thrive, that we look to what we like our graduates to be like, as students and people, and use our best judgment to make that happen. And so I think there's too much of a tendency to fall into, this is what everybody does, so we're going to do it too. There's a real culture of sameness, I think, that is going around. And I think when I look at our schools, what I'd like to see them do is I'd like our many people working on teaching these kids every day who have experience and degrees and all this other stuff to use their independent judgments working together to really prioritize what's best for our kids and to be open to, being a model for what schools should expect from kids and not necessarily be worried about state testing scores and that kind of thing. I know we have to be in compliance with all these things, but I don't find it an inspiring message that we're in compliance. So.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Boyce.
I think, Jeff, and I'm sorry I wasn't there for your site visit on Monday, keeping us cutting edge and even more, and I know you can do that, I've seen you do that, obviously above the curve and with our students, and it's so impassioned in you, and I know and a lot of others, whatever it takes to make them succeed, to give them that chance, and to do their best.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm going to give a two-part answer, and they already know my second part. But
Fred, you're shut off.
Skip over.
in piggybacking on Kevin for 1 second, what others are doing doesn't matter. It matters what we're doing here and what we do. If someone wants to jump off a bridge, let them jump off a bridge. That doesn't mean we should. The old adage goes. Want to see the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Someone that can take our team, be collaborative, and inspire and lift everybody to the next level of their game. And then once you get to that level, inspire them to climb higher and so forth and so on, never being satisfied as to where you're at and always striving higher, and really bring a source of Panther pride throughout the whole district.
Yeah.
Dan?
We've talked over the years over many subjects. Got a little list that we've talked about. One of the two big things, public relations, marketing. Yes, I think we really need to, by just talking with all the people in both towns, we're not good at that because we always convince the same people, and that's 1/3. We need to convince the other 2/3. Full day pre-K through 12. We already missed the boat with K, and everybody's already starting pre, so we might as well just start from there. Definitely the foreign languages in middle schools. I mean, I think all of us had that, and not to give it to our kids coming through the system now is kind of disgraceful not to have that at the 6th, 7th, 8th grade level. The library, yeah, I think we have the same thought there. Libraries have changed, and they're going to change rapidly over the years. It's more media-based than book-based. The school system is more, I think, more like college, not as much for the other people that aren't going to college. I mean, not everybody's college material. Maybe over the years work towards helping, like we're doing currently A and B level for the school system. And definitely trimesters, bad thing. I like the way we went with the current system. So, because I did see that help kids. I saw my kids struggled with trimesters. It's just the way that system works. It's not a good system, and I'm lucky we had that money to get that. You could play the shell game to get the teachers involved. Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. One big thing, and this has been something that I've been pushing from the beginning, is marketing with the other towns, working with the other towns, with, like you mentioned, the water department, the other department heads that are out there, with the politicians that are out there, with the elderly, with other people getting out there, and like you mentioned, which was great, getting the buy-in from them, seeing the value in it. For me, one big thing for the next 5 years, because you asked a vision, absolutely the full day K, but I couldn't agree more on a lot of levels with the whole social emotional piece. That putting, like you had mentioned, putting the right people in the right place in the elementary level, because I think, and maybe I'm way off base, I think if you can capture a lot of stuff early, it makes your job at the high school a little bit easier, hopefully. On a positive note, the students that we spoke with the other day, not a knock on the other two candidates in their schools, but marked difference with the way that they spoke, with eloquence and how they were absolutely phenomenal. So that's a credit for you and your staff here at the high school, absolutely. But as far as the vision, absolutely with the all-day K, but I would like to see more of the whole social emotional piece, because we do see a lot of that on a whole lot of levels out there. And with both towns, the towns are just two totally different entities with different needs, different wants, and being able to work with them. So, is what I'd be looking for.
Jeff, mine's not going to be real popular with the parents. I keep reading that kids have changed. Kids haven't changed. Parents have changed. How do we drag the parents back in? Not all parents, because a lot of parents are involved with their kids. The parents that don't but complain about the results here, how do we get them back involved? I want to get them involved. I want to get that red and black, bleeding red and black, that wanting to be here, the love to come into the building, because I just see we missed that. And I don't know how to get it back. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that we need it in order to be more successful. Every single candidate, including you, talked about student-centered. Student, 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 student. Without the student and the parent, you're getting half. You need them both here. We've got to do better. All school districts have to do better getting the parents back involved. It's a huge, huge thing. We're in a big, big change. I mean, it's 2018. It's difficult. Both parents work. Everybody's juggling it. But we've got to do something to make them want to come, because I go to other school districts and they get it done. We need to do more of that. That's what I want to see. I want to come to a school committee meeting and see 50 or 100 parents. You've heard me say it many, many, many times. Or come to a sporting event, a track event, a wrestling event, and see all of them there. That's what I want to see. So we're leading the way. Because this school did it, and I know it was years and years ago, and they've been doing a pretty good job at it. I want to see better involvement. Any other questions for us?
I do not. But I was going to make one comment.
Sure, you can give your close, make a comment, whatever you'd like. We've got plenty of time left.
So, Mr. Jones, when I asked that vision question last, you said you want to be the best. I believe we are the best. I bleed right now black and red and white. My freshmen wear white. My sophomores wear white. They don't wear pink, okay? But I bleed the colors. I mean, I believe in our district. I believe in our people. We have some of the best people here. You need to have leadership and support that will give them the opportunity to be the best. I believe we are. We need the funding, we need the support, we need the conversations. I will be very proud to wear my colors around. I wear them all the time now. Wherever I am, I'm proud to be the proud principal at Whitman Hanson Regional High School. Be extremely proud to be the superintendent of the district and telling people what a great district we are, because we are. I agree with all of you in different points. I think we need that communication in the town, and I think we have to, and I think I can establish the trust back that I think has been lost over time through no one's fault. But the communication and the trust factor is pretty apparent, and it doesn't come back just because we say it should come back. It comes back through work, it comes back through dialogue, it comes back through sitting down and hashing out some of the issues that have been in the past and owning them. I'm not a person who, if I make a mistake, you'll hear about it. I want to make it better. I'm not going to make the mistake twice, but I'll own my mistakes because I'm human. My leadership with my faculty and my people, I think I've got the best people here. I'm not a person who's going to go around and pat everybody on the back every day, but I will when it comes. I think acknowledgement is there. Giving students the opportunity in a traditional high school, vocational aspects, and when I said I want every kid to be able to achieve what they can achieve is true. If we have to find alternative means to get them through things, we have to find alternative means to get them through things. Just put them on a different path. I've been creative at this point. My team has been able to help me be creative and solve problems. The principals here are some of the best people that you can find. I have colleagues that don't have the support systems in their systems that we have here. I utilize them as a support system. They're the leaders of their building, and they can, I think, Mr. Hayes, get those parents back in if given the opportunity to lead their buildings, to have conversations, sometimes tough conversations, but give them the opportunities to be out there and getting parents back in. If we could get 3,000 people to the Garden for a basketball game, we can get your 50 people here for a school committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff, did you find our, one more question, were you happy with the way we did the searches?
Yeah. My anxiety level's been up for about 2 months now, and I haven't slept well, but I think the process was excellent. I don't see it, I mean, other processes have been very similar, because I've looked around and, Googled here and Googled there and making sure that it was fair and appropriate, and it has been, and it's been great. I mean, just speaking freely, I mean, yeah, I will tell you, I've been nervous and anxious for 2 months, but I really enjoy the conversations that we've had. I enjoyed having to talk to kids and tell kids on Monday when they said, what should we say to the school committee? I said, they're not going to be mean, and they might look mean, but they're not mean. I said, well, what do we say? And I said, just be honest. Please be honest. Don't make up stories. Don't blow smoke. If I did something that wasn't appropriate you didn't like, tell them. That's okay. That's not going to make or break my position. But I wanted them to be there, and I hope you got that from the kids. I hope you got that from the faculty. Hope you got that from the principals. Because what I am from you here and from standing and doing presentations, that's who I am. I accept my faults. I will take a thank you or an attaboy once in a while. That's okay. I don't need that. But who I am is what you see and what you get.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next charge here, we have heard from all of the finalists for the interviews, so we can discuss the candidates. If we need to take a 2-minute break, I don't have any issues with that, or we can go right into the discussion. We're going to do it the same way as we picked them. We can go right around the table. Everything has to be done, including the voting, right here, right in front of everybody. That's the way it goes. It has to be open, transparent. Your discussions are your discussions. That's what you were elected to do. That's the charge of this committee. I know it's not easy, but it is what it is. So, Mr. Marcus, I believe, was the first interview.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien, you want to start? Being on the end isn't always the best.
No, it isn't. What would you like to know? What do you want?
You want to point of order?
Kind of very similar, I would say.
Mr. Chairman, I think someone wants to.
Point of order.
I'm sorry.
And I don't know, I had some information, and it's general information. I don't know when would be an appropriate
Does it
timeframe.
have anything to do with the candidates?
It has something to do with all of them. It's general information.
Okay, go ahead, Fred, I'll listen.
I just wanted, in listening and researching, there are some resources available out there from the Mass Association of Superintendents.
That's all stuff, Fred, not to interrupt you, that we're going to do when we get to the contract
Okay,
piece
that's fine.
of it.
Okay,
I'm not trying to,
No, I just thought it was interesting, and perhaps everyone should know about it. That's all.
go ahead then, as long as it's quick.
Yeah, it's real quick. Mass Association of Superintendents, they have a 3-year program. I haven't researched it heavily, but supposedly it's like a college course for 3 years for incoming superintendents, to give them a support and give them a mentor, so that whoever we would have that type of resource available. Also, the Mass Association of Regional School Committees has a similar program, professional development program. That cost is like $100. The other one, someone had said it was around $10,000 over 3 years. But this is a series of 3 sessions, and it is highly pertaining to regional school districts. So whoever we would select, that might be something that would be of interest as well. That's it.
Okay.
I just want to make sure everyone knew.
Just to tail on that, just so everybody knows before we get started, once we make our decision on who the candidate is, we are going to have another meeting to discuss the contract. And then we offer that contract and try to negotiate it out with the number 1 candidate. And if that does not work and it gets rejected, or if the number 1 candidate should be applying somewhere else, which does happen and gets taken before we do that, we go to the number 2 candidate.
Okay, so we're picking.
We're going to pick them 1, 2, 3.
Very good.
Michelle has set up a chart, so, and I think I'm on the top, so I'll be under the gun of telling you who I think my first pick is, my second pick is, my third pick. Michelle's going to tabulate those right over there, and the one with the lowest score will be the number 1 candidate.
It's like golf.
Any questions? Just in case anybody has got any thoughts. I can read you, I know that we had great length discussion, even attorneys involved, and I've got open meeting law guide in front of me. And it states, while the minutes must include a summary of the discussions on each subject, the transcript is not required. No vote will be taken by a public body, either an open or an executive session shall be by secret ballot. There is no gray area. I spoke with Andy Waugh, who was the attorney for the school district, and he said, if you put anything on paper and pass it in to Michelle, even though it could become part of the public record, it is still a secret ballot. So this has to be done in the open. As I said, this job that we have to do and we're elected to do is maybe not the easiest, and I didn't write these laws, but we got to go by them, because it was October 6, 2017. I had Michelle print that guide up, so that's how we're going to do it. And is there now's the time to talk if anybody wants to think about any other way.
So, can I just, so that,
Go ahead, Bob.
so our top choice would be one, the number.
Yes,
the number
your
one.
number one candidate will get 1 point.
Okay, all right.
Your number two candidate will get 2 points. Your number three candidate will get 3 points. The person with the lowest score
Yep.
ends up the number one candidate.
Yeah.
Any question?
Nope.
One Bob.
Kev?
Should we just confirm that we actually do want to make an offer to all three candidates? So, like, I mean, just making sure everyone's on the same page on that. I mean, if after the interview, there isn't a majority of people who would want to make the offer to any particular candidate, we should probably know that first, right?
Well, I would say past practices have been 1, 2, and 3. And then if you run out of candidates, you start this whole process over with a screening committee and readjust, you know, run the ad again.
I think Kevin might be trying to, I don't know if we're on the
No.
same page. I wasn't on the interview committee, see, like, not that I don't. I didn't like one of these three candidates that was brought forth. And, you know, I only want 1 and 2. I don't want a third choice.
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting along?
Yeah, or it could be just one, or just two. I
You
mean,
have to vote all three.
Right, but I don't think you have to vote that we definitely want to offer a contract to all three. We can rank them 3, but I just, if a majority is comfortable with all 3, that there's no problem. I just wanted to make sure that people don't feel boxed in and that you have to offer to each person.
Fred?
Myself, I feel that any of the 3 would be a wonderful addition. It's close in my head right now.
I think the committee got it down to 3, and you have to make that tough decision.
Yep. Good choices, though.
Okay? Everybody all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay? All right. So, being on the ends, as I said, is difficult. You guys at one of the ends, Robbie, was starting, and we're going to go in the same order that we picked out of the hat. Start with Mr. Marcus.
All right, so,
And it doesn't have to be, not to interrupt you, it doesn't have to be lengthy. If you just want to say, no, I'm good with what he said, and move on, that's okay, too.
oh, no, and I'm good with what he said, and I took some notes, and I'll hit on some of the stuff I liked. I did like, for question number 3, when he talked about supporting mental health of students and the social workers in the elementary school, absolutely. I like, with the budget stuff, that he's a community person, likes to be involved in the community, likes to get out there and talk with people, and understands that there are priorities to the budget, and talking with the towns to see what the town's priorities are with their budget, and working with them. Enjoys being an active member of the community, making connections, you know, basically what you need, how can I help? That was actually a great thing, I think he said. Just reading a few other things in here. Basically, having I guess, a partnership with the staff and with the stakeholders, I think was something that resonated with him. You know, and going with the site visit that we had, you know, they had said that he's definitely for lack of a better way of putting it, a PR person that will go out there and talk to communities and you know, do his best to work with them and help us get, hopefully, the budget that we'd like to get someday. You know, liked by the students, liked by the teachers that we met. So that's it for the minute. For the moment, actually, one thing I did like, something that we heard about and he touched on briefly was with the senior centers, with the IT students. You know, great way to get buy-in. So having them go out and help with the cable.
Dan? Thank you, Robin.
With all 3, I was kind of doing my own little point system. Yeah, I'd like the mental health social worker deal. He did rank kind of high on the PR on that site visit, listening to the people. For Mr. John Marcus, I would go as the number 3. I would put him into my 3rd selection.
Oh, we ranking them right now, 1, 2, and 3?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all right.
I was gonna say, I missed that part. I apologize.
We'll do that.
All right.
Okay.
We'll do that at the end. Dan, you done? I'm sorry.
Yep, done.
Dan, Fred?
I'd like to concur with, I won't read back the comments, Robbie and Dan. I like the idea that he wants to be inclusive of staff and decisions. I do love his reaching out to the community with the seniors, thinking outside the box. He's a plug-and-play problem solver. They seem to put him into any situation, wherever. Being an active member of the community, wants to tell the story to the community. I love that part of it. The only question in my head is he too nice of a guy? Is he strong enough for that position? That's one of my only questions. But I think he's a wonderful, wonderful person and a very good candidate.
Thank you. Mr. B.
Yeah, I think John Marcus was an excellent candidate. He spoke about people, he was very passionate. His speaking of SEL, of SPED, I really thought he did a great job, and I find him that he has a lot of continuity with and compassion with people, and I think he would be an excellent candidate choice.
Mr. Lynham?
I thought his experience showed well in his interview. I think he was able to articulate and identify the needs of a whole district and how to do that. I mean, I thought it was one of the questions we asked was about facilities, and he said, you know, the same thing that Ernie says, where it's about the reporting and the communication and stuff, and he's done that. So extremely strong on the operations sides of things. When he talked about structuring the administration, he seemed to recognize implicitly that that was a strength and that he was looking towards how to best complement himself with some focus on curriculum. So I thought his answers were very strong. I was impressed.
Thank you. Bob?
Again, I know him. However, the first time I saw him was when he came for or heard from him was the first time he came for that interview. So I want people to understand that when I make my remarks. I do know him. I think he interviewed very well. He has a nice cross-section of experience that K through right up to administration. He seems to understand what we need. I thought his background was pretty much solid. I think he answered the questions pretty much in depth, and I was impressed.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. I liked his experience. He's been in administration. I liked that he had taken some time when he found out that he was a finalist. He was driving around Hanson and Whitman, which I thought was huge. I like hearing about his the community compact grant he got. It sounds like he's applied for some other grants, which was good. I believe he truly is a caring person. Seems that he's worn many hats and filled in for many roles. I do slightly question if, community-wise, he's going to be a strong enough member. That would be my one downfall.
Okay, I'm going last. I love that he did his homework on Whitman Hanson. As you can probably tell, I talk about red and black and bleeding red and black, and I love that he went to the Hitchin Post. I love that he went to Mary Lou's, the pink store, I was going to say. I love the fact that he did those things. He didn't answer Kevin's question, but he was honest that he didn't answer it. And it wasn't the easiest question in the world either. They don't have full-day Kay and Sharon. But he was honest about it. I like that fact. I was showing Kevin, I think it was you, Fred, that he told our story. I put he's transparent and telling our story. I wrote that in my notes because I thought that was important. And I don't know if you could find a guy with a bigger heart. I mean, I sincerely believe he meant that. I'm not too sure about what you were talking about, Mike, as far as I'm not sure if he's strong enough. I don't know. But I certainly think that he was an unbelievable guy. Good guy. Okay. Any other comments? I'll go to Mr. Mack, Kevin Mack. And I'll go first if you want, seeing as I
can go.
Yes. Okay, go ahead, Mike. I haven't read it yet.
Just quick notes. I feel that he truly answered all the questions very, very directly. I like to push for social media. Be able to market and promote the district. I think he'd be very well at it. I did like him saying, you know, we set our goals at something, you know, at a 5, and meanwhile, we're reacting to that, which I never really thought about. I like that he's trying to get all the citizens involved. Talk of walking the neighborhoods in the interview before and then this interview again, I think would be good. I really liked him as a candidate.
I don't think he interviewed as well this time as he did the first time. And I think if you compared John Marcus's interview and then Kevin followed him, I don't think Kevin had as much in-depth knowledge. I mean, he answered the questions well, I agree with that. But he seemed weak in areas, and I just didn't think he interviewed as well this time as he did the first time. And I think the problem I have is, and I'll speak to Jeff later, but it's a high school principal giving answers, and they weren't in-depth answers. And you had an assistant superintendent who gave in-depth answers. So I was just a little disappointed in his interview this evening.
Kevin?
I did appreciate that he was concise and direct in his answers. I just wanted to, okay. So, trying to phrase this the right way. So, an issue I had was not making the case for the fit between him and this district. That almost none of his comments seemed directed specifically at this district. Like, the fit between him, why would he pick this one over any other one? He's, you know, seemed very sort of data-oriented and really sort of structured in all his answers. So I didn't really see him making the case that how he would fit here specifically. So that was my impression.
Okay, I'll go in the middle this time. I thought he was very data-driven. Both times he came with packets and handed them out about his entry plan if he were chosen to be superintendent. He talked about the schools, and I went on that interview. I don't agree with the fact of that school being it's an old school, but I did not think it was clean. I even took pictures of it and probably shared them with some of you. So I didn't see that, but maybe it's me being too critical. I'm not quite sure. And I'm with you 100%. His first interview was like, wowed us. And this interview was kind of flat. Just me.
So I wasn't on the first interview, but as I saw Kevin coming in, I introduced myself earlier. You could tell he was very focused, but I think that focus might have played against him a bit. You know, he mentioned a lot of great things with curriculum mapping, you know, making sure that if there's a curriculum committee, having SPED involved in that curriculum, and I thought that was great. And his availability, the investing one-on-one, and so forth. But it just wasn't in depth enough. It didn't give a total, if I can say, human side to it. He basically spoke the facts, and I'm sorry from hearing from all of you that, you know, he didn't rise to the same occasion. I think his focus just kept him from really sharing more and being more in depth.
Thank you. Mr. Small.
I wasn't, and perhaps I was looking for something a little different out of the interview. Granted, he wasn't as charismatic as the first time. I was looking and reflecting upon different portions of him. The guy is a tireless worker. He is very charismatic. He does seem to say the right things. My few question marks with him are his knowledge of the way a school system works in Massachusetts versus Rhode Island. That's a little bit of a concern. Then you have a region on top of that. So the dynamics of how things work and the learning curve that it would take. You know, those are a couple of my concerns. He is a very similar person to John Marcus, I thought, with less experience and a little bit more of a direct tone. But overall, I mean, I do like him. I just don't know that he's as strong of a candidate as I had originally thought.
Thank you, Fred. Ian?
To what everybody's been saying, yeah. Like the building, yes, I was in the same situation, going in and seeing not well-kept facilities. Scoring-wise, he did very good, I thought. I mean, they're all so close on my point system here, but the SPED question, the numbers, it got worse than we were getting from his eye. I don't think they understood where we were trying to get to, like your whole budget, not materials. He couldn't really answer that too good, and he had mentioned he wants to, find that home. Are we really a fit? And having that little thing where we heard the superintendent there is retiring now, and which he may not be privy to, how long will he stay here before somebody calls him home? That's a major, I mean, he does well here, but that's a major concern I have in the back of my head. Do we do this again in a couple of years? So.
Thanks, Dan. Robbie?
Well, I guess I'm sorry I missed the interview with the search committee. Again, I echo what everybody else said. He was very direct with his answers, absolutely. He's definitely a data-driven person. One thing I did like is when we asked question 7 about, he talked about high-quality programs for all type of learners, finding out from the communities what their vision is. He may have a vision, we may have a vision, but what's the vision out of Whitman? What's the vision out of Hanson? I thought that was very good. I like the parents feeling involved and welcomed. Almost goes to what you were talking about with parent involvement. But, he has, if you look at his resume and stuff, that's where he's been for just about his whole career, if not his whole career. It does come down to the fit. And I just don't know if we're at for him, to be quite honest. So.
Okay, anyone else? And Dan, I'm kind of glad I forgot about the other two things you mentioned about.
Yeah.
I forgot. And I wrote them in my notes.
I just looking at my point system, I forgot to take, back in my mind, that's.
Okay. Last, Mr. Simonak. We'll start with you, Mr. Lyon, seeing as you had your hand up.
Well, home field advantage. He interviewed exceptionally well. He took a stand on issues. He was willing to criticize what he felt needed to be criticized as part of making his case for how he'd improve the district. His familiarity with the specific needs of the district helped him a lot. So, I think in terms of the interview, he did extremely well. And when he was talking about building a new central office, he talked about hiring somebody who was opposite him, someone who would complement him, and I thought that was a really good answer. It was probably the best answer to that question that we got. Very impressed.
Bob? I'm trying to just jump around so nobody's on the.
No, that's fine.
Jonesy keeps getting beat up over there.
I guess I'm looking at it in sort of a total 3-person interview here, in that if I'm putting principal versus principal, Jeff outranked Kevin McNamara immensely as far as his composure, the way he answered the questions. Mm-hmm. I think if you're an in-house candidate, like Kevin said, you're going to have that breadth of knowledge more so than an outside candidate. I think we might have, I think, at least a misstep in mine is that I was hoping that we could have those three candidates come to the system before we had this interview process, so that staff could meet them as well. Because if you're an outside candidate versus an in-house candidate, it's difficult because we all know Jeff, and he knows the system. I thought he interviewed very well. I thought his answers were well thought out. I liked his idea of being out into the community, as did John Marcus. I think that's a very important step. So I think he did well. Even though he was the in-house candidate, I still think he answered the questions very well. I was impressed with his interview.
Mike?
Yes, I agree with these two. I mean, he an unbelievable interview. I thought he 10 out of 10. I liked him saying, you know, he's going to organize what we currently have. I liked what he was saying about the curriculum coordinators is kind of getting everybody on the same page. I like that he has experience in our district, and we see him. I think he's done a pretty good job, and we've proven it with social media, even today. I enjoy the passion. I think he's another great candidate. I was probably more than impressed the other day. I mean, he was told on Friday or Saturday that he had to get everyone together, teachers, parents, administrators, and can't complain. I mean, the group of people that he brought in that short amount of period was very impressive from people, just from our own community, so.
Good report.
Okay. I'll jump in. I think it's difficult when you have an in-house candidate, because what happens if you don't have someone liking the current policies of the administration, you get painted with that same brush unfairly. You know, somebody would say, well, it's just going to, we want different, or we want this, because, you know, we heard it from all sides. We all got lobbied. You know, we all heard all of that. So I think that's hard. I like the part where he said he was going to, the opposite skill set. If you look, that's what I wrote down.
Mm-hmm. That's what I get.
I think that's a sign of a good leader saying, I already know what I can handle. I want to get somebody that does the things I can't, so we fit together as pieces. I think that is a good quality. Evaluating the current employees, I think, is a must. And I think he did very well in both of his interviews. Mike, probably my fault, the reason he was the first candidate, because Michelle and I were trying to put this together fast, and he was here. He was the one, we had already called the other two, and they were like a day or two away, and he did jump to the task. So we kind of put him under the gun, and he did it. And he didn't complain about it, and I thought he brought in some good people. So I guess having said that, that's my take. Mr. Boyce.
I can agree with all of you. Jeff is just a wonderful job. You know, it was our current superintendent that brought Jeff on, and there's good reason he's here. And he's here 7 years later. And you can even look back at the other good people that are here, sitting in this room or been in this district. You know, right now I'm looking at Bill. He would be a huge asset. The students already speak highly of him in this high school. I'm sure the others probably already know him. Got an opportunity with the preschool moving up here and bridging that gap and making that a new culture. There's just so many dynamics that speak of Jeff. And I'm not just talking outside of this interview. His interview was excellent. I think he did a wonderful job. I'll still also say, you know, John Marcus is right up there on my list. But Jeff really rose to the occasion. And he just shows it. He keeps a certain demeanor, a certain tone, and he's a go-getter. He gets the work done.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Fred, I'm sorry.
And Steve, you just said it. He rose to the occasion. To polar opposite. Jeff interviewed well, I thought, initially. Tonight, I thought he was in the playoffs, Game 7, the MVP. He, I think, really hit it out of the park today. And I think back to all the other interviews and to what we heard from parents and what we've heard from people. And everything we heard, it was a common theme, kids first. and caring about the kids first. I also like the fact about the opposite person to become his number two, so to speak. But he also made mention that he would expect that opposite to become a confidant. And that, to me, says a lot, that, you know, he would be opening himself up to that person as well in a working relationship. Not to discount the other two candidates, but I thought Jeff was fantastic. Answered everything, and his knowledge of the district really showed through, so to speak.
Thank you, Fred. Mr. Cullaby.
Okay, Jeff, I thought he did very good on the interview. Like the rest of you, I was very impressed where he took out that opposite skill set. The other two didn't really mention that because, you know, you have to have, can't have everybody doing the same type of role. You could work better that way. More buying into the teachers to get the curriculum set. I thought that was a pretty good idea. Because they're part of the school system. It'd be nice to hear from that. Dead on the number 3 thing with the emotional social work and full day, on board with that. But, you know, he put that in the right order that I would expect somebody to have. When it came down to the 4th thing with the accountability of the SJC, not only he talked about that, he also brought up first student not having the right thing. So, you know, having an in-house candidate, he knows already some of the things we need. And by bringing that up, to me, that gives it a little bit more cred. When we come down to number 5, really liked the need to market the district, selling that off, going to the polls, going to the senior center, and that's along the line of like what Dr. Marcus was talking about. Number 6, getting out to both towns, discussing the priorities, using the social media. I've been on his feeds, and you know, you see him jumping on things. He handles it pretty well for the public already, and it'd be nice to see somebody do something like that and take it a few steps further. Number 7, the full day K, social, the whole thing he did for number 7, the extra curriculum, marking the district, the whole work there. Really impressed with all that. Didn't get to see everybody's first interview, but I'd have to say Jeff, you know, hit it out of the park here.
Thanks, Dan. Mr. O'Brien.
Echo what everybody said, and absolutely, because a week ago, I was like, there's no way we're gonna pull this off. And I was the one saying, bring them out and let them come to our, talk to our people. And then when we get the email that we're gonna be at Whitman Hanson on Monday afternoon, I'm like, there's no way this gets pulled off. And right after that, or halfway through, because I remember saying to Fred, I'm like, Fred, I don't know if this is gonna work, this timeline. And bang, right away with the parents. When the parents started speaking, the stuff they were talking about, just having a son that's in high school, I'm like, wow, okay. And just the response that we got from parents, students, principals, teachers, and all sorts of teachers in there, was really phenomenal. And one thing that a few of them touched on was being able to hit the ground running. Being an in-house candidate, yeah, you get some strengths in it, but also there's some pitfalls to it, because you're going to have people. I'm sure he's made tough decisions that aren't popular either in the high school or in the district and things like that. So that's going to be tough, I think, for him. But you know something, he's willing to rise to that occasion. A few things he talked about, and I won't take too long, because again, I echo what everybody else was talking about. But you know, communications with stakeholders, doing what's best for students. He mentioned that a million times. You know, common structure. He really, I mean, he's involved with the high school, he's involved with the middle school, and he realizes that the elementary level, we can do a better job. I mean, that's basically, I guess, what it comes down to, is being able to work with the curriculum coordinators, the teachers, the principals, to be able to do that. You know, being able to hopefully do a little bit more with less. Getting out in the community, one thing I really liked that he said that no one else hit on, going out to the community to do what we're asking them to do, whether it's go to the coffee shop and get your teeth kicked in, 'cause that's what's gonna happen, or whatever it is, he's willing to do that uncomfortable thing. It's gonna be uncomfortable. He's gonna, and I guess that's a good thing with a high school principal, used to getting yelled at from parents or whoever, but it's gonna be uncomfortable to be able to do that, and he hit on that. And, you know, one thing with that is he is known in the community, so I think that does help, that it's a little bit of a jump start. You know, one thing he touched on with both towns, because again, both towns are unique as far as needs and wants, and yep, there's one pie, and everybody has to divide it up, but being able to make those accommodations with each town, that, how do we work with each other? Talking about the well-rounded student was big. I thought when Mr. Trotter asked, you know, how you gonna, what's your plan for coming in, because being in-house, that can be tough. I like that he and Ruth do work well together, and I'm sure it's tough being in the same building as a superintendent and high school principal, but they do seem to work very well together, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that she can show him, but I'm sure he's now, you know, if he's the one that we select, able to get out there and maybe help with the transition process with McQuan shutting down, because I personally don't think it's been as smooth as I would have liked it to have been. And that just is what it is, but maybe him being able to take it and be that personality with it and going out there and again, doing the uncomfortable thing, having some uncomfortable conversations and things like that, getting the input and things like that for it. And one thing I liked also when they asked about our vision, and Bob, you brought up about the parents, let the principals get the parents involved. Let them get the parents involved, and if they fail at something, that's okay. You know, like he said, accept his faults. If he screws up, I screwed up, and own it. And I think that's what he would be looking for from his principals. You know, something, let him go out there and try whatever the initiative is or whatever. And if it fails, okay, it fails. Guess what? 2 weeks later, they're going to forget about it because somebody else is going to do something to, you know, to take the spotlight off of it. And what you see is what you get, and I actually do believe that with them. So.
Thank you, Robbie.
So,
Bob?
Yeah, I guess this is kind of what I'm wrestling with is, if I went principal to principal, I would take Jeff as far as a candidate. And then when I look at comparing the answers, you have a principal and you have an assistant superintendent answering the same questions. And being an in-house candidate gives you a little more advantage as opposed to as I said before, someone who's new. So I don't want to be kind of swept in a sense of, because it's an in-house candidate, then he answered better than John Marcus did. So I'm wrestling with a assistant superintendent versus a principal who's going to move up to a superintendency spot, missing a level. Now, is it that important? I don't know. So I'm kind of wrestling with what's kind of like the best. And I know, like Robbie said, I think an in-house candidate sometimes it can be stressful because you're moving into a whole new position. So I guess my dilemma is kind of the experience factor. I think both interviewed very well. Don't get me wrong, but that's what I'm struggling with.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Mr. Boyce?
Bob, I'm kind of glad you mentioned that, because that sounds like the traditional way, but we always know to do things cutting edge, so let's try something different. And if we fail, we own it.
Kevin, are you done?
Oh, yeah, I'm done, sorry.
I wasn't walking
No,
away.
that's okay.
Yeah,
Kev, go ahead.
I had this down to the same two candidates, and where I have some pauses, when you look at John Marcus's background, I mean, how well does it fit what you're looking for, where he's dealt with opening and closing buildings, doing it right now. He just implemented a one-to-one technology initiative in his district. You know, and so he's handled so much of the operations side of things too. I guess I would view him as sort of the upside candidate, like where we haven't seen as much of him yet as we saw out of Jeff Simonak. And I think that, and this is where I'm torn, I'm not taking a position yet, but where you're most confident at the sort of the floor of Jeff. But I'm wondering if John doesn't have a higher ceiling, you know, just like what he could do coming in with the wealth of his experience. So, you know, it's like, how much do you put the interview? I mean, the site visits that they talked about, I mean, the people we talked about both of these candidates in the same superlatives, you know, super high praise. So it's really, you know, what you saw tonight and what you've seen in the interviews versus everything else is where I'm thinking.
Any more, excuse me, any more discussion before we move to this, going around the vote? Fred?
The one thing that we heard on two of the candidates, actually, Mr. McNamara and Jeff, was the visibility at events. And if you had to find a drawback, and I don't know if it's in his purveyance as assistant superintendent that he would be attending sporting events and you know, different things within a district. But that was the one thing that was important to me that I like, was that visibility. Now, that, not to take away from Mr. Marcus, because everyone in the town knows him, knows who he is and loves him. But that's the one thing that I admire about Jeff, and this is going back a year ago, never mind a week ago.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, on top of the list, do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I have Simonak 1, Marcus 2, McNamara 3. Michelle, are you recording this? Thank you. Bob, if you want me to skip over you so you can wrestle around a little bit more, I will.
Yeah, please.
Kevin, you were next. You want to hang out a little bit and think?
Give me a minute. Yeah, go.
Robbie O'Brien?
I'll go with Jeff Simonak 1, John Marcus 2, Kevin McNamara 3.
Oh, okay, Fred?
Jeff Simonak 1, John Marcus 2, Kevin McNamara 3.
Dan?
I'm going to go with Jeff Simonak 1, John Marcus 2, Kevin McNamara 3.
Steve?
Jeff Simonak 1, John Marcus 2, Kevin McNamara 3.
What's up?
Yeah.
Let me go?
Yeah.
I think in my heart, I'd have to go with John Marcus 1, Jeff Simonak 2.
Jeff Simonak 1, John Marcus 2, Kevin McNamara 3.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'll change my vote to make it unanimous. If that's all right.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, do Jones.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, not me.
Jones, I told you, get beat up, you get beat up. You know.
Sorry.
I have Jeff Simonak as 1,
All right.
John Marcus as 2, Kevin McNamara as 3.
And Bob, you're changing yours, what you
I
told?
will change it to make it unanimous, yes.
Michelle? I did the results, but I want to make sure you have the same.
So Marcus would be 2 for me now, and McNamara would be 3. You got, okay.
Yep. Like everyone. Yep.
Okay. So announcing the number 1 contestant would be Mr. Simonak with the lowest score of 8 Is that what you have, Michelle? Yep. And Mr. Marcus is the second candidate with the lower score of 16. And Mr. McNamara comes in third with 24. So we will offer and move into contract negotiations with Mr. Simonak. I'm going to see what's good for next week. I don't think we have that rush hurry to get that contract done. Michelle, you can correct me because next week's school vacation.
Right.
I know that some of the other candidates were applying other places and would probably want to know. So I would think that we could, if you want to not do it on school vacation week, I will entertain doing it the week after. If you want to meet during school vacation, we'll set a date and just go over the contract. It'll probably take half an hour.
Whatever's good.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I guess.
You want to do it next week?
Yeah.
Wednesday?
We have a meeting on February 28th, you can have an executive
Oh, so it's the
session.
following week, we can just do it then.
You want to just do it a regular school committee meeting?
Yeah.
Bob?
Whatever the committee wants to do.
Kevin?
I'm open.
I'll defer to whatever you guys want to do. on
School
that.
committee meeting?
Yeah, sure.
Fred?
Yeah, I'm fine either way, and
Whatever.
Yeah,
Okay,
school
all
committee.
right, we'll do it at school committee meeting. Michelle, it's going to be done in
Yeah.
executive session because it's a contract negotiation. And we will come out of executive session after that, and we will,
So do you want to make a vote tonight?
yes. What do you want me to vote?
would you like a motion,
Motion that we,
motion to rank the candidates?
No.
Jeff
No.
Simonak, number one.
No, I think we need to do that.
No. We already,
You need
We
a,
already
we already voted that.
Already
so-
voted.
we already
need a
voted
vote
to
to
do the
offer the
lowest score.
contract.
Just a motion to offer Jeff the position.
Okay. The motion's made to offer Jeff
Second.
Simonak, the number one candidate, the job.
Yeah.
So did somebody second it?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Okay, in the event, I'll entertain another motion. In the event that Mr. Simonak doesn't get together with us on the contract and he says no, I'd entertain a motion to accept the number two candidate.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? In the event Mr. Marcos decides not to take the job, or we can't get together with him on the contract, I'd entertain a motion to offer the job to Mr. McNamara, the number three candidate.
make a motion to vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second.
Somebody want to second it?
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Any discussion? Excuse me.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Oh, there's a discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I would rather go back to the well than automatically offer it to Mr. McNamara. That would be my position.
Same here.
That's what we're saying.
So we just, to Mr. McNamara?
Yes, so that we have one and two, but
No, three.
I'm
Will not
not
go
comfortable
three.
automatically offering Mr. McNamara the contract.
Okay, any further discussion?
Or come back to the full committee even and decide where to go from there.
Right.
On the third choice,
Okay.
so you'd have to vote no.
So what you're saying then is on, if 1 and 2 don't take it, we're going to start over.
Yeah.
We'll
We'll have a
reconvene.
meeting.
We'll reconvene.
We'll convene and discuss it?
Yep.
Discuss it.
Reconvene.
Okay, so the motion was so we could go into discussion that we would offer it to Mr. McNamara if the first 2 don't take it.
It was voted to give it to the third, so we'd have to vote on that first before we can change the language. And
Well, you just
we
vote
can
it down.
We just say no.
Well, we
We
didn't
just vote
vote
no.
on
Just vote no.
Right. All those in favor?
What are we voting for here?
All those opposed?
accepting the, that's what I was trying to say, we have to vote on that first.
If,
This is where they come.
if the one of the 2 first candidates don't take it, we can discuss it at the school committee meeting and determine where we're going to go from there. We'll have to reconvene a search committee and move forward, so let's hope we don't have to do that.
I don't think you will.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for coming
Thank you.
this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair.